In a race lasting 24 hours, every passing hour on the track is a gift. Because when the night comes, it brings hard times. The initial adrenaline rush has worn off, and the realities of going flat out for 24 hours set in. Fatigue affects both man and machine. Mistakes are made, and if you're lucky, you can fix them. If you're not, your race is over. For the survivors, the goal is to see the sunrise, to race through the day, and perhaps to win. But in the Rolex 24 at Daytona, only time will tell. When we left the 37th running of the Rolex 24, it was bright sunshine. Here at Daytona Beach, Florida, the field was shiny and strong. More than 75 cars still circulating. 3 hours into the race. But now the skies are lightening over Daytona International Speedway. And the field is much reduced. And many stories have taken place. Both stories of disappointment and of triumph. Some may not win, but they have endured. Victory lane awaits those who do win. And as the skies lighten, there are 6 hours to go. Here's Bill Weber.
This race is all about man and machine. But for these crews along this long pit road here at Daytona International Speedway, the next 6 hours are also all about emotion. You sit patiently waiting, hoping it's your car that keeps running. Every lap, every pit stop, every minute, every second, you're waiting for that radio to click on and your driver to call in, hopefully not to tell you that your race is over after you've survived this far. Yes, it's about the mechanics and the man in the car, but it's also about emotion. It can be very draining, especially in the next 6 hours. Marty Reed?
Well, as the sun comes up, the good news is that you have survived the night. The bad news is you realize you still have 6 more hours to go. And you've busted your knuckles on countless tire changes. The crew has to continue working. Feet literally sore, aching from all the work that's been going on throughout the night. And if you've got a bad caterer, you've got an upset stomach as well.
Welcome to hour 19 at the Rolex 24. The lights have been on during the night, but that really hasn't changed the nature of nighttime racing. At the 37th running of one of the great sports car events in all the world, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Welcome back, everyone. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut, especially you folks out on the West Coast where it's 4 a.m. It is 7 a.m. Eastern time here at Daytona, and we'll be with you live all the way to the finish of the Rolex 24 in 6 hours. I'm Bob Varsha along with Jeremy Dale. You've already heard from Marty Reed and Bill Weber. Am I accurate in saying that, Jeremy? You've been there, even with the lights out there. That doesn't change the nature of nighttime racing at Daytona.
You're right, Bob, because morning here at Daytona is so hard. You've been running for 18 hours that you see the sun come up, and psychologically in your mind for the drivers and the crews, you're close to the finish. You see the light. But you're not. You're nowhere close. You're only 75% of the way there, and that last 6 hours, by far the hardest time.
And we have to admit that our television cameras make it look brighter than it is out there. It kind of reminds me of the old Twilight Zone television show in which a man condemned to die at dawn never saw the dawn because it never came. And I'm sure for a lot of these teams, they feel that way. On board, on the racetrack, and you see just out there over the Atlantic Ocean, to the east, the sun is coming. Now let's not make you wait any longer. Here are the overall standings as of this hour. And if you left it 15 hours ago, well, there's no real change right up top. The number 20 for Dyson Racing, a Ford-powered Riley and Scott chassis. They have seen both late loss and victory here at Daytona. Right now, Butch Leitzinger, reigning sports car driving champion, is in that car, and the Dyson team seems to be in pretty good shape. They did full service on that car, and they did it 3 laps faster than the number 7 Ferrari that chases them. Right now, the Dyson team holds a 4-lap lead over those following them. In the GT2 category, Chris Neifel in that brand new factory Corvette runs 6th overall with a 4-lap lead over their nearest rival. In GT3, Anthony Lazzaro from Atlanta, Georgia, has a 5-lap lead over his rivals. In GT3, he runs 8th overall. And in the GTT class, the number 19 Ford Mustang that has led the class pretty much since the beginning of the race is running 31st overall with more than 50 laps on the rest of the field. That was a very small field in what is a new class for tube frame cars, basically SCCA Trans Am sprint machines trying to last twice around the clock. A dazzling field, one of the strongest driver lineups we've ever seen. But the old lessons still come into play here at Daytona.
Yeah, that's right, and some of them have been pretty hard for some of these teams, especially the PTG BMW team. Both of its cars, the number 10 car and the number 6 car, out. Both running into motor problems. They did replace a cylinder head on one of those cars, and that car did run into problems in our show yesterday, but both of those cars are out, so they will not be able to defend their win here at Rolex.
And that is a big story. They were going for their 3rd straight here at the Rolex 24.
And another big, on this page, the 50 car, the Donohue, the GT2 car, that is the Viper, the Orica Viper, and they had an accident last night at 8 o'clock, had some chassis damage on that car and had to withdraw.
That was a part of our battle in the GT2 category. The Vipers against those brand new and untested over a 24-hour race Chevy Corvettes. For these cars at the back, well, their stories ended early on. They are hopelessly behind, most of them off the track and back on the trailer. On board now with the leader in the GT2 category, Chris Neifel in those awesome Chevy Corvettes. Let's get down to Marty.
Yes, in fact, they are cruising right now, very comfortable in that number 2 Corvette. They are about ready to pit. It's probably going to be in about 2 more laps, and they're going to be bringing the number 2 Corvette in. You mentioned what happened to the Viper during the middle of the night. In fact, it actually was about 8:04. Got into an accident, Beretta at the wheel, broke the upright, put the car out of commission, unable to finish this race. So it is now up to the Corvettes to carry the American Muscle banner. Bill Weber?
Well, in the Can-Am class, it's a very relaxed atmosphere in the Dyson pits. Butch Leitzinger is piloting the lead car, the number 20 Ford. He just recently replaced Elliott Forbes Robinson. Now, a few moments ago, just before we came on the air, Leitzinger came down pit road. They did a brake pad change, routine maintenance, 4 tires and fuel, and he went back out. Now, they lost the team car here for 2 hours overnight. They have worked on that and gotten it back out, but it is 11th overall, however, running several laps down to the leader. Meanwhile, the 7 car, the Ferrari, which was the leader, as recently as about half an hour ago, did a very extended brake pad change. They also put Maximilian Angelelli in the car, but because they have a 6-piston caliper brake on that car, it took a very long time. They lost basically 3 laps on pit road. Those are the laps they're behind now. One more update on the 72 Ferrari. It was 5th overall last time we checked, but more than 40 laps down. Basically, those are the defending champs from a year ago, Lion Dyke-Baldy, Hayes and company, but they had problems overnight. No longer a contender in the Can-Am class. So right now, it's in the hands of Leitzinger and the Dyson team.
Jeremy, let's hop on board the number 7 Ferrari, currently in 2nd place, and take a lap here in the pre-dawn darkness.
And you can see as it begins to get light, you can see these are some of the new lights, which are not as obvious in the infield section, which is where we are now. We're coming up to turn 5, and we're just about to turn out onto the banking and join NASCAR turn 1. And there you see a good look at some of the lighting being used here. As you said, about 20% of the available lighting around the outside perimeter of the racetrack is being used here. Now this is through NASCAR 1 and 2, down the back straightaway, approaching the chicane. And there, that flashing light you see, that is an arrow pointing to the left, just to remind you to turn left into the chicane. You can go straight there, but if you go straight and improve your position, you will be penalized.
I wonder if that bright light shining on the dash there is much of a distraction to the driver. Any of us who have kids and you go driving at night, they always want to turn the light on in the car, and you always have to tell them to turn it off so you can see.
Well, I guarantee you that that is a bit of a distraction. But I think what that is, you can see it on the isolated shot there in the lower left. That is their pit ID light. That's a light that they have mounted up on the bodywork there, so the guys in the pit lane know when their car is going by. This is down now off the banking, behind the pit lane, rolling on into the infield, into the international hairpin. And we've just about completed a lap here. And you can see, compared to yesterday afternoon, not nearly as much traffic. I think we've lost about 20 or 25 cars from the field. It's hard to tell exactly how many cars are running at this stage because a lot of cars are either in the garage being repaired or down in pit lane being repaired. And they may be out for half an hour or an hour or 90 minutes, but they will return. So it's hard to get an exact car count on how many cars are still running.
Everybody will want to be on the track if they possibly can be when it strikes 1 o'clock this afternoon and the checkered flag flies. Let's check speed comparisons for the front-running 2 cars, the number 20 and the number 7.
And actually, the 7 car running 3 miles an hour quicker, 3 seconds quicker. Those lap times, they really will ebb and flow because of the traffic. Let's go down to Marty Reed. Gt2 leader is in.
You're right, guys. Chris Neifel has brought the Corvette in for routine service. 4,000 RPM in second gear is the magic number to keep him under the 60-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's going to be 4 tires. They are going to add some oil this time around. I guess after this many miles, you got to put a little drink on the motor side as well, besides the fuel end of this thing. But the crew, and again, look at this left front. He's making sure they're taking a lot of caution with the threading. One of the problems that the Viper team had, they lost 2 tires to flats. Of course, one of the Can-Am teams, I think it was the 72 team, the Lista team, had a couple of tires come off during the race. It is very critical that these crew members, we talk about them busting their knuckles on these countless tire changes, but it is so important from this point on that everybody does exactly the right thing at the right time. Take a little extra time at this point. Don't get sloppy and have a major problem that costs you a lot of time back at the pits. The change is done. The oil's in. We're out of here.
And if you were wondering what that bottle was that was being plugged into the roof, that was the oil going in. They have Chris there thanking the guys for a good pit stop. They have a pressurized bottle that has pressurized oil in it, and it forces the oil down in. They don't pour it in out of a can. It's in a pressurized container, and they just plug it in, and it fills it up.
Hope he left him a big tip. Now, we cannot overstate what an achievement it will be for this Chevy factory team if they can get just 1 car, much less 2, all the way through to the finish of this race, not to mention possibly winning their class. That would be an absolutely phenomenal achievement for basically an untested car at this distance.
Well, they've been working on this car for over a year. Ron Fellows was initially contacted in September '97 about the testing and development program on this Corvette. So it has been in the planning stages for quite some time. And it is a reasonably well-developed car. But having said that, to debut any car, there's no substitute for racing. You can test, you can do 24-hour tests, you can do all sorts of testing, but there's no substitute for coming to Daytona and putting the car on the racetrack and trying to run 24 hours. And to debut this car, it's just a phenomenal achievement. It's a long way from the end.
Not just for your cars, but for your people as well. It's very much a people business, and that includes more than just the driver, the pit crews, the logistical people. And that is a good example of just how hard you have to work. Member of the Alex Job team that leads the GT3 category right now. These people are on their feet at least once an hour for that all-important activity in the pit lane that keeps the car alive on the racetrack. And when the car leaves, they go to work behind the wall. Welcome back live on Sunday. The Rolex 24 at Daytona in its 19th hour. You're looking at Butch Leitzinger and the race-leading number 20 Dyson Racing Riley and Scott Ford. Now that car shared the lead lap with the car pursuing it, the number 7 Olive Garden Ferrari 333 SP through all of yesterday and much of the overnight hours. But gradually the Dyson Racing team has pulled away. Long brake pad change for the Ferrari and a much quicker pit stop for the Dyson team. Put Butch Leitzinger now 2 laps ahead of the Ferrari, but we've got a long way to go, and we're used to dramatic finishes in this twice around the clock marathon. Just a couple of years ago, the leaders were on the same lap and just 65 seconds apart after 24 hours of racing. GT2 Porsches trying to refire. That's a second-place car in class.
And it looks like I saw this car. I was looking out the window. I saw this car coming down pit lane, trying to get properly positioned, and it looks like now he's leaving pit lane. Peculiar.
That's a 911 GT2. Andre Arl from Germany is on that driving strength. He won the GT2 class in 1997. David Warnock from England and Hubert Haupt of Germany also driving that car. Let's look at our GT3 class now. Race leader is Anthony Lazzaro in the car that sat on pole for that class. Bill Weber has more on that car.
Well, Bob, before the race, we referred to that 23 Porsche as the underdogs in this Super Bowl weekend. Basically, they were the Atlanta Falcons, while the Denver Broncos in GT3 are out of it. As you guys have pointed out, both the BMW's done for this race. And for the 23 Porsche, it has been a flawless race to this point. So they're very pleased with how everything has gone. They've done a little routine maintenance. They had one bent wheel. And other than that, everything's been fine. It is Lazzaro in there. They were the pole sitters for this race. They have a 5-lap lead on the 02 Porsche. The 22 car, the sister car to the 22, has had problems throughout the evening. But right now they are focused on the 23 Porsche and trying to keep Lazzaro and his teammates in the front of GT3.
It's now a 4-lap lead. Now that car's drivers have all come very close to winning this race, but really haven't done it. Kelly Collins a third, Darrell Havens a second, Anthony Lazzaro second. Could this be the year that they break through to the top of the podium?
And look at that. We have 6 cars within 12 laps, which means, you know, anything can happen in GT3. 12 laps, you know, that's not a lot with 6 hours to go. So, I mean, we've got 911s dominating that class, but we do have an M3 in there that is a privately entered car, that 17 car. So 6 cars within 12 laps is very, very close.
Now let's toss another possible variable into this. We understand that there is a very good chance that we may see raindrops before the checkered flag flies on this race. What will that do?
Well, boy, you know, if I could answer that
Never
question.
mind, I know the answer. Shouldn't have asked the question. It is a whole new race if it starts to rain here at Daytona. Of course, we don't stop when it rains in sports cars. We slap on the treaded rain tires and get back out there.
Yeah, it's one of the few opportunities you get to see cars out on the banking going 180 miles an hour through the trioval at Daytona in the wet.
That's a padiddle out there, one of the Riley and Scott cars missing a headlight. We got behind the number 2 Chevrolet Corvette that leads the GT2 category. Here's a look at the GTT category, a very small class, brand new this year to accommodate 2-frame race cars. There's actually a couple of cars in this class that run in GT3, but they also might qualify as GTT cars. Let's get to Marty Reed for more on this story.
Yeah, there were a total of 7 cars entered in GTT. First time the class has been held here under USRRC sanctioning. Right now, the 19 car, just as yesterday when we left the air, Kyle McIntyre, Les Delano, Andy Petery, and Gary Stewart, and Craig Carter, they are well out in front. In fact, by over 50 laps from the second place car. The only other car of the 7 that is still running at this moment, Hank Scott and Kyle McIntyre and those guys in that group, they are putting that car through its paces, but they are well back. The other 5 are in the paddock area and are in the process of being repaired or have been officially withdrawn. Now, if you remember yesterday, if you were with us during our On the Grid show, one of those drivers was 67-year-old Dick Greer. He is a former champion here in the old GTU category. 16 is coming into the pit lane, as we can tell right now. But unfortunately, Dick's dreams of winning again at age 67 aren't going to happen. The 13 is out of the race. Let's go to Bill Weber.
And the 16 car for Dyson Racing is here on pit road. James Weaver has just climbed in. The 7 Ferrari is also on pit road. So some of your Can-Am cars on pit road now. Remember the 7 car was running second. The 16 car had some on-course contact overnight, and they lost 2 hours repairing some suspension. They're currently running 9th overall, 55 laps down to the Can-Am leader. They're making some brake pad changes and some other adjustments to the front. Marty? Jeremy, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Bill. We're just watching that pit stop, and you could actually see the mechanic that was working on the left front. They're actually doing a suspension adjustment on the push rod that comes up that activates the spring and the shock. So James Weaver, I guess, is telling those guys that the car isn't handling quite right and making some adjustments. Here's the 7 car, and they were in about 20 minutes ago doing a
lot of oversteering going out the corner, no traction.
A lot of oversteering going up through the corner.
Yeah, going.
Okay, well, we'll have to put you on another set of the same tire, or else I don't know really. I'll talk to Steve.
Throwing a lot of water on the radiators of the front.
I'm going very slowly.
So he's complaining that the car is.
Max, are your mirrors okay?
He's complaining that the
Don't
car.
touch the brake pedal.
Yeah, they must.
Get ready to start the engine. Get ready.
They must be doing a brake.
Pump the brakes now.
Yeah, they're doing a brake pad change on the left rear, so he's telling him,
Pump the brakes to start the engine.
don't touch the brake pedal, otherwise you'll pop the pistons out of the caliper. So now they've got the brake pads in. Now he needs to pump up the brake pedal. And the reason they throw all that water down in through the vents there is to not only keep the car cool so it doesn't heat soak during the pit stop, but also to rinse any sand or debris out of the radiator.
Okay, I will try my best.
That's all we can ask. Try your best.
Look at this narrow pit out here.
And I was concerned about all that water laying down if he stopped on it.
Okay, 0 to fuel meter. Do not signal him from the signal. Do not signal him in. Do not signal him from the signaling board, okay?
Talking to the crew at the signaling area.
Do not what?
Which is
Do not watch the signaling board. I do not want you to look at the signaling board and come in the pit, okay?
So he's telling him don't watch the signal board. He just drove by the area where the signal boards are, which function as backups to the radio in case you have a radio failure.
Separate from the pit area. So Max Angelelli is back out after a fairly fraught pit stop. Butch Leitzinger out front. Angelelli still runs in second, but he's lost some more time. We'll be back. Of sunlight. You are live at Daytona International Speedway for the 37th running of the Rolex 24. Butch Leitzinger with the Riley and Scott Ford V8 out in front of the race by 4 laps over a Ferrari 333 SP in the hands of Italian Max Angelelli. And those two have 10 laps over the third placed number 36 car.
And actually that 36 car, which is one of the Dorn cars, had been down in 4th behind the 00 Ferrari, the European entry. So that is a change of position that happened really not that long ago. The 36 car being the Jim Matthews car.
Right, another Ferrari 333 SP in the hands of Stefan Johansson. Jim Matthews, the car owner. Max Pappas and former Kart FedEx champion Jimmy Vasser. And had an interesting time. They were on the same lap with that 00 car for a while. And now they've got third place all to themselves by a lap.
And 14 laps may sound like a lot, but in reality, it doesn't take a big problem to put you down 10 or 12 laps. So that car, you know, Dorn knows that. That car is by no stretch of the imagination out of this race. They are in the thick of it.
In the Can-Am class, the fastest cars on the track. It takes less than 2 minutes to complete a lap. You can make up laps in a hurry if someone is stopped in the pit lane. Working the flat infield section of this 3.56-mile combined NASCAR oval and infield road course. And that infield is absolutely packed, as it has been year after year here at Daytona. Down on the infield is where you want to be, not up in the grandstand. Ooh, close moment there. The chicane at the end of the 3,500-foot backstretch. To watch the number 36. That's the Ferrari we were talking about earlier from Kevin Doran's stable of 2 Ferraris in this race. Going around one of the Chevy Corvettes. High on the banking, 185 miles an hour or so. And Jimmy Vasser is behind the wheel. What an experience for Jimmy, who no doubt hasn't driven at night or in a full-body car for a long time. Now Now, if it rains, it's going to get really interesting.
Well, at least the color's right, but I think it's probably a nice change for him to come to Daytona. He's been off for a couple of months from driving the champ cars, and I think for him it's probably a very relaxing weekend. And that may sound strange to say, but certainly Jimmy's career does not depend on winning this race, and it's a real opportunity for him to just come here and have a good time and enjoy himself.
He'll have a new teammate as Alex Zanardi has moved on. Young Juan Pablo Montoya from Colombia will take over the other car for Target Chip Ganassi Racing. Here's Bill Weber.
And your second place car in GT3 is on pit road, the Gt2 Porsche. It has been routine service, 4 tires and fuel, struggling to get the windshield clean, also taping up the driver's side mirror, the passing mirror on the left-hand side, which has been knocked loose at some point during the race. But right now the Gt2 Porsche pulls back out and will continue its pursuit of the 23 Porsche, the leader in GT3.
Car being shared by John Molin, David Murray from Lilburn, Georgia, very experienced racer here in the Rolex 24, Joe Reiser from New York, and Grady Willingham from Alabama.
And this is on board with Anthony Lazzaro, the 23 car, so that is the leader in GT3, Alex Job's car. Now, Alex Job has done a fantastic job, been around sports car racing for a number of years, started out with a very small operation, and has worked very hard, has consistently run Porsches, has worked very hard, has brought this team to the front in GT3, and has just done a phenomenal job. Has worked with a lot of different drivers, and no matter who's in the car's always well prepared, and they're always close to the front.
Anthony Lazzaro, a big addition to this team this year. They've been raising money for the Seattle Children's Hospital and Regional Medical Center for years. They're shooting for more than $200,000 this year. Right now, they're leading the class and racking up the money. Now, there's our leader in the GTT tube frame category. He went very slow down the backstretch. Kyle McIntyre behind the wheel of that Ford Mustang. That was driven by a trio of Daytona rookies last year. Here's Bill Weber.
Well, the 19 car is here on pit road, and you want to talk about taking your time. These guys have about a 60-lap lead in their class in GTT. So they're going to have some routine service here using Goodyear Eagle tires. They're going on, making a driver change here, but a very patient crew. Fueling the car, the driver change going on. Again, this is a new class here in GTT. The 79 car in this class has just returned to the track. But as you can see, taking their time, making sure they get everything right. And this will be big for them. They can hang on here. They have a tremendous lead and win in the debut year for this class. Guys?
And if this car looks familiar, it really is very close to a Trans Am car and very close to the cars that Jack Roush used to run here and won, I believe it was 9 straight titles in GT1 at the Rolex 24. So it's not as if this type of car is new, but it has been added as a class for, you know, these weekend warriors to come down here and run in the 24 hours.
So the classic 5-liter Fords. In fact, that was a Trans Am car built by former Trans Am champion Tom Gloy. Now back on board with Max Angelelli and the number 7 Ferrari, trying to take a lap back from the race-leading Butch Leitzinger.
And that is Butch Leitzinger out in front. Their last lap was pretty close in time.
There's Leitzinger in the foreground. Here comes the Ferrari.
Well, look at the top end on the Ferrari, just sucking up behind that Dyson car. And he ought to be able to get that lap back as they come down into turn 1.
Traffic ahead. Look at the time comparison. Angelelli has been going just that bit quicker than Leitzinger. Now, if you're to other forms of racing, you may say, well, he's 4 laps down. I mean, come on, how desperate can he be? You can get back into this race very quickly.
Well, and that's the thing. If he gets by Leitzinger and they get a full course caution, and actually during the night we have not had that many full course cautions. I think we've been racing for about 3 or 4 hours now without a yellow. And look at the correction there on the steering wheel. We heard him complaining about oversteer coming out of the corners, and certainly Angelelli's got a handful there with that Ferrari. But if he can get around Leitzinger and get that lap back and the yellow flag comes out, then he drives right around the back and he gets the better part of the lap back.
Coming around to face the east and dark clouds on the horizon. 60% chance of rain, we were told yesterday. Look out that direction. Look at that.
Well, guys, just a little more information on that 7 car, as you talked about. Not very happy with the handling of that car, and they are trying to make up ground on the racetrack. But here's one item to keep in mind. Wayne Taylor has only driven 1 stint in that car. That was in the early evening hours. He continues to battle the severe effects of the flu. He got out of that car, said he simply did not have the strength to continue. They hope to put him back in the car later today. But right now, as these cars race nose to tail, Mcnish will go in next. And these guys will have to handle the bulk of the driving duty. Trying to make the pass, couldn't quite get it done on the front stretch.
Being very careful in traffic. There's a lapped Ferrari. I think that's the double zero car. That's the 4th place car.
The 4th place car has just gone down another lap. And I talked, after we went off the air yesterday, I went down to the pit lane and I talked to Wayne Taylor as Angelelli goes by the double zero. I talked to Wayne. He had not driven yet. He thought he was going to be okay, but he said, you know what? If I'm not fit enough to drive, I'm not going to drive, and I'll just let these guys take it, and they're plenty capable. But Wayne Taylor has got, if he wants to get points in USRRC Championship, he's got to drive 15% of the race distance, or the time. So it sounds like if he doesn't get back in that car and get his 15%, he's going to be not scoring any points.
Race leader Leitzinger goes by the number 8 support net, Riley and Scott. And here comes the number 7 Ferrari with Angelelli. Now we have word that the leader, Butch Leitzinger, may be pitting. Let's see if he slows down once he gets into NASCAR 3 and 4 following the chicane. That'll be at the end of the backstretch coming up right now.
And you know, just watching Angelelli, it's interesting. It doesn't look like he's driving that car with a lot of confidence. It looks like he's really tiptoeing around it and not very happy with the handling. You can just tell.
Didn't have enough confidence to really stick it in there. Yeah, there's Butch Leitzinger dropping down. He'll take to the pit entrance this time by, we are guessing. And that means the lap comes back to the number 7 team. The Olive Garden Ferrari now 3 laps down as Butch Leitzinger brings the Riley and Scott down to the 60-mile-an-hour pit lane speed limit. Other cars pitting to his left. Staying to the outside till he reaches his pit area. Bill Weber is there.
Andy Wallace will signal Butch Leitzinger into his pit. Belt's already off. Leitzinger sprints out of the car. Wallace will put in his seat cushion that he will climb in, and Leitzinger will buckle him in. Now, we've talked about tire compounds and tire composition and on how this team wants to run several stints on one set of tires. No tire change here for the Dyson bunch. Simply fuel and the driver change. Leitzinger out. Wallace goes in. He's trying to hook up the radio and the water bottle, of course, and then they will send him back out. The car is fueled, so right now just getting the driver comfortably set in the car is taking the longest time. That's the radio cord. Leitzinger hooks it up. Wallace slowly rolls away. Now he stalls it, but refires and continues. And we'll come over here, and as he rolls out of pit road, we'll get a word with Butch Leitzinger as he takes off the helmet. His teammate jumps back out on the track. Butch, how are things out there?
It's getting a little bit better because the traffic's thinning out, so you're not quite in as many roadblocks out there. The car, the handle's great, but there's a lot of gunk up in the footwell. So the throttle sticks, and the gearbox also is a little bit sticky. It's actually the linkage is sticky. So it makes it, you have to concentrate on every shift. It's a little bit annoying after 20 hours. But the car, it's handling great, and the engine's still good. And the gearbox, actually, the gears themselves are good. Yeah, so it's going all right so far.
The 20 car had 2 basic small problems overnight. One huge piece of debris they picked up on the undercarriage, and then you guys did put on rain tires once, and it turned out you really didn't need them.
Yeah, we had a fluke shower here. There was one of those Florida deals that comes in for 10 seconds, and you know it's really hard. So they came in and put rain tires on, went back out, and it's the wrong decision. But you can never tell.
That's the lot. Thank you.
You gotta love driving like that. All these things are wrong, but other than that, everything's okay.
I hate to tell Butch, but we're not 20 hours in yet. It's only 18 and a half, Butch. You got a long way to go.
Well, I guarantee he's not the only person in the pit lane who's thinking ahead. Can't blame him for that. Meanwhile, in the car is Andy Wallace, who has no fewer than 5 victories in 24-hour and 12-hour races. That car is in good hands. We'll be back. Back live at Daytona International Speedway, you're watching the leader in the 37th Rolex 24 at Daytona, Andy Wallace. In the midst of traffic is Riley and Scott Ford for Dyson Racing. Running in second place, having just made up a lap when Butch Leitzinger pitted to hand over to Wallace, is Maximiliano Angelelli. Runs 3 laps down now. Third place car number 36 sits in the pits right there. Jimmy Vasser at the controls. If you're just joining us, we're going to take you live all the way to the finish of this race. And the front of the car is coming off. They may need to get at the front suspension or the radiators.
Well, it looks like they're doing a nose change. And I was down in pit lane yesterday afternoon as it was getting dark. And I saw them do a nose change. And they may have a nose that has better nighttime lighting, but is a little heavier. And they may have a lighter nose for daytime. Let's go down to Marty Reed.
Yeah, guys, and they're geared up for another stop for the Corvette a little bit sooner than we anticipated, and there may be a problem, and it may be the oil. If we see more oil going in here, guys, they could have an oil pressure problem. Now, they've got a 6-lap lead right now over the 83 car. Chris Neifel is going to be getting out. John Paul will be getting into the car. So far, no oil being pumped in, but Jeremy, keep your eyes open, because I think you know as well as anybody what that could mean if they've got to add more oil. You know, they added some just the last time that they were in. They're checking brake pads right now. It looks like those are okay. Yep, the left front is going back on. And again, the fueling is finished. Now the question is, yes, here comes the oil bottle. So, Jeremy, I'll let you pick it up from there, buddy.
Well, you're right. I mean, to see oil going in, and there's that pressurized bottle we talked about, to see oil going in during a 24-hour race, it is not unusual, but not every stop. That's not good.
Don, what's the water temp?
He's asking John Paul what's the water temperature on the gauge. Maybe John doesn't have his
Water temp, John.
doesn't have his radio plugged in yet.
205.
205.
Shut it off.
Yeah.
Off your light.
They told him to shut it off, so they are going to be doing some work here. I'll try and get Chris Neifel here as soon as he gets his helmet off. He's in the process of unbuckling. Maybe we'll be able to get a comment from him.
Well, what these guys need to
Reset your fuel, John.
what these guys need to do is just take their time, get their service done. What they're trying to do is blow as much debris out of the radiator as they can to bring the temperature down on the water, which will also help keep the oil temperature down, and that should help any oiling problems.
Guys, I've got Chris down here. He just said it's a little
Keep blowing,
toasty.
guys. Keep blowing.
Let's talk a little bit about this, Chris. What's going on in the cockpit?
Hey, that's going on. Get the hood on.
Really fantastic. You know, we're well over 18 hours into the deal, and you know, we just got to take care of it. And we're watching the oil temperature, you know, and all the real vital signs for the motor, taking care of the brakes, and you know, any little sign of trouble, we'll get it to take care of. We're not going to get caught out.
We've seen you add oil now the last 2 stops. Are you worried about the oil pressure?
Yeah, it's, you know, we're using it up, but it's running great. So just keep that Corvette running. We'll be in good shape.
John Paul's out of here, guys. They're back out on track.
Well, let's look at the Gt2 leaderboard as we go on board with John Paul. 4 laps down is the 83 car, but they probably, that may not be completely up to date because they probably lost a lap on that long stop there. So it's probably 3 laps. And look at all those Porsches lined up behind that one remaining Corvette ready to pounce.
Something interesting is happening weather-wise. We're now almost fully overcast, and the skies are not lightening as quickly as they normally do because of the cloud cover. Marty Reed is down there.
Yes, and 00 has pulled in. Angelo Zadra from Italy will climb out. Lillian Breiner from Switzerland will climb in. If the name Lillian Breiner sounds familiar, from Porsche Super Cup competition. And also, she and Enzo Calderari have won here before in a smaller class. Now, they are fighting for that podium finish. They are in fourth right now, running on the same lap as the third place car, the 36. So Lillian is getting in, and they have taken the strategy of just running a steady pace. In fact, one of the guys down here was saying, we'll just put the key in, we'll wind it back up and send them back out. And the bottom line for that is that they look at the battle up front, and they're saying, hey, we can't match them for horsepower, but this is the old tortoise and the hare. They may beat each other up. We'll be there to inherit the win. So Lillian Breiner is strapped in. They'll hook up the radio, and these guys will be back out into the race.
I wonder sometimes why we don't have more female drivers in this race. Lillian Breiner has a sterling record of achievement here, and her longtime partner Enzo Calderari has won a couple of times here at the Rolex 24. Angelo Zadra of Italy and Carl Rosenblatt from England also driving that car. They just lost a lap. But Breiner is out there, and she'll try to start making that up right away.
And that's just the ebb and flow of pit stops, and you know, that is fairly normal. What you don't want to see, and that looked like a very routine pit stop, very calm, very orderly, and that's exactly what you want. You don't want to rush. You don't want to make any mistakes. Just take your time. You know you're going to lose a bit of time, and there's just no way to get around that. So you take your time. You don't make any mistakes, and off you go.
Breiner on her way back out, leading the way in more ways than one. Girls, if you want to race cars, get out there and do it. Someday you too can race the Rolex 24 at Daytona. There's our Can-Am leaderboard. Andy Wallace over Max Angelelli. Those two cars have been in the battle for the lead all night long, and when we return, we'll bring you up to date with all of the highlights of the nighttime hours. Stay with us. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is being brought to you by Yokohama Tire Corporation. Turn on technology with Yokohama Tires. Back at Daytona International Speedway, we are live, and the reports are it is raining at some of the corners here at Daytona International Speedway. We've had a couple of cars slipping and sliding, and you can see from the clouds overhead, you don't have to be a weatherman or a duck to know that water is coming. We had a brief shower overnight. We'll show you what that looked like in just a moment. But the immediate story is rain is coming here at the Rolex. And we haven't seen rain tires going on in any of the recent pit stops as you watch Andy Wallace in the race-leading number 20 car that sat on pole for this race.
And this car got caught out a little bit. I think the shower they had was at about 5 a.m. and they got caught out. They thought it was raining harder than it really was. Came in, put intermediates on the car, and then basically it stopped raining. You heard Butch Leitzinger say, you know, one of those normal Florida showers where it just rolls in, rains, and then it's gone, and they had to come back in and do another tire change. So they actually lost about 3 laps in that whole process. There's Andy.
Okay, that last lap was a 48.7. And you still have a 3-lap plus 21-second lead over the 7 cars.
And if that voice on the radio sounds familiar, that is Bob Leitzinger, Butch's father, talking to Andy Wallace. Bob, of course, a longtime sports car racer and has retired now from driving, but he is there every step of the way with Butch, and that is Bob on the radio.
Well, let's not wait any longer. Let's get you tuned in to what happened since we left you yesterday afternoon, including the rain shower that struck during the night, as we review the Can-Am class highlights here at the Rolex 24. At the beginning of the race, you'd have thought it was one of those 500-mile sprints they're so used to here at Daytona International Speedway. The guy on the right is Alan Mcnish. The guy on the left is James Weaver, going absolutely crazy. Make that Butch Leitzinger in the car as they dodge traffic at top speed in the early hours of the race. Arie Luyendyk, the 2-time Indy 500 champion, had to be towed in the number 72 Ferrari with gearbox problems. And Arie was very frustrated as the work continued.
Now we're basically fighting traffic to stay ahead of the lead car. And but now, of course, you know, it's very difficult to win this race from the pits.
No question about that. In the 4th hour, Elliott Forbes Robinson sat forlornly in the pits with alternator problems on his Riley and Scott Ford. But the crew was able to make the switch And EFR got back out, having lost the overall race lead. Half an hour later, the number 16 car passed number 7 for the lead on a restart, and number 7 took it right back. Those cars have been battling all race long. In the darkness, as the moon came out, so did the drama. Stu Hayner off the track in the number 16 car.
Just as I got to the bus stop for one of the slower cars, the black Ferrari showroom stock looking thing, he just went to the right. Now, I don't know if he was trying to get out of the way of someone, or maybe he was trying to dodge someone, or maybe he was setting up for the line, but whatever he did, he came in front of me, and we were, of course, doing 40 or 50 miles an hour faster, and when he came out, he was 10 feet in front of me. I mean, I just flipped him, but it was enough to kind of put the left front askew, and we had to sit there for 5 or 6 laps, and now who knows what's going to go on. I think it's fixable.
In fact, it was, and they got back on the track. At about 8:30, the leader, number 7, pitted. Hard-working Scott Alan Mcnish out. Belgian Didier de Rodriguez into the car. At 9:30, the number 36 took over the lead and then pitted for the experienced Stefan Johansson to get in the car. But right after he left the pits, the wheel came off and the car spun. On the left, Kevin Doran, the team manager, put his team to work. As the team worked feverishly to get the car back in shape to go back on the racetrack, all Stefan Johansson could do was sit in the driver's seat and take encouragement from former kart champion Jimmy Vasser, his co-driver. They finally got it fixed, and Johansson was back out into the race. Shortly after midnight, Alan Mcnish, back at the number 7 Ferrari, had the race lead well in hand. 10 minutes or so later, the number 20 car, just 30 seconds behind, pitted. Elliott Forbes Robinson replaced Andy Wallace behind the wheel. And it was a battle of the pit crews to see if they could get their pit work done faster than the race-leading Ferrari to get their car into the lead. Soon EFR was on his way, and the Dyson crew had done their job. Then it was time for the race-leading de Rodriguez to pit. Make that Mcnish getting out of the car as he hands over once again in the driver rotation to de Rodriguez. He managed to hold on to the lead and a 1-lap advantage over the number 20 Dyson Ferrari. But by 2:45 a.m., Forbes Robinson had whittled down the Ferrari's lead to just 10 seconds. Shortly before 5 a.m., all eyes turned toward the weather forecast as rain began to fall on the Speedway. Everybody grabbed for their treaded rain tires, including the Dyson team. And despite the unscheduled pit stop, Elliott Forbes Robinson was able to get back out in pursuit of the Ferrari. The Olive Garden Doyle Reese team also switched drivers. Once again, Mcnish out, de Rodriguez in. He hoped to hold on to his lead as the clock ticked into the daylight hours, but they were unable to, and a long pit stop dropped them to second place behind the number 20.
And this gives you an indication of who was leading at what time. You can see a bulk of that was the 7 car up until they had that very extended brake pad change this morning with those 6-piston calipers on the Ferrari. The 16 car, before it ran into problems, was up in the lead, as was the 36 car during the early evening hours, and the 20 car, as you can see there, at 7 a.m. took over the lead, and it's pretty much been there ever since.
But it's been a great seesaw struggle all night long, and we have more than 5 hours of that struggle to bring you over the next run, all the way up to the 1 o'clock hour Eastern time when the race will be done. We'll be there all the way. Some of us will be sleeping, but the rest of us will be wide awake. So stay with us. Long way still to go with the Rolex 24. Ford leads Ferrari. We're back live at Daytona International Speedway, watching the race leading Riley and Scott in the hands of Andy Wallace. No further reports of raindrops here, but we're in a small break in the clouds. Ooh, a couple of class leaders battling here. That number 2 Chevy Corvette leads the GT2 category as the overall race leader disappears over the horizon. Now, as we've been saying since we began our coverage yesterday at 12:30 Eastern time, there are as many different stories in this race as there are people in the pit lane. And with one of those stories, here's Marty Reed.
Well, the 45 BMW is in for a half-shaft change, and they're not going to win this race, but this crew has a never-say-die attitude. You can see the piece that they've already snapped off and what they're having to replace. But one of the drivers, and this is one of the interesting stories that happens here at the Rolex 24. You know, you have over 327 drivers. Not all of them are professionals, but Leo Hendry is a professional in the television business. Chairman of the board, TCI. Why would you want to do this? You could be home watching the Super Bowl.
You know, I could. It's actually Denver's night. Denver's night. This is something that you dream for, Marty. If you get it, you know, if you're ever allowed to do it, you just do it in motorsports. I started fairly late, and this is, you know, I walked down here yesterday afternoon, and all I said to one of the crew is, Dorothy, this ain't Kansas. And if you ever get asked to, you know, to participate and have a chance, you do it. And we're just thrilled to be here. Jim Bell Motorsports and the BMW has done a nice job for us. We've had a little bit of glitch over the evening, but our second car is up near the top, and we'll see. It might even take a podium. And this is just, you know, next time it may be our turn, but it's been a lot of fun.
Leo, thanks for taking time to talk to us. Good luck out there. Bill, I understand you got some action up at your end.
The number 7 Ferrari on pit road. Alan Mcnish has signaled it to a stop. Maximilian Angelelli will climb out. He will help Mcnish climb in. They will change 4 tires. They will fuel the car. They don't believe they're going to need to change those brake pads the rest of the way in this race, and that's a big plus for them, because on this car, because of those 6 piston calipers, it takes a very long time. That's when they surrendered the lead just slightly before 7 o'clock this morning. So Max is out, and Mcnish climbs in. They clean the grill and waiting to send Mcnish on his way. Now he's got a problem signaling something. He yanked off the steering wheel. You might have a better view of it from the camera up there.
Well, it looks like he's having problems getting that steering wheel back in. And what I also wanted to point out was on the cowling on that car, they actually taped on right here. They taped on an extra little wind blocker for Mcnish to throw the air up over his head. So tailoring the windshield and the aerodynamics of the car for the drivers in that 7 car. Tightening up his belts as he leaves pit lane. That's pretty normal. Often when you come in for these pit stops, as you enter pit lane, you start taking them off, and you're kind of out of the belts long before you ever stop, so that you make sure that you get out of the car. As a driver, the last thing you want is to have the driver change hold up the pit stop. You want to be done. You don't want anyone else waiting on you. You want to be done and finished. Let's go back down to the weapon.
With Maximilian Angelelli talking it over with a member of his crew, he wasn't really pleased with how the race car was handling. And as you can see, he's describing that now to his crew. Max, obviously, your car was not handling as you had hoped.
No, difficult to say. We try a different solution tires, and the race is long. Everything can happen, so I hope something happened to the first car.
Overall, though, how is your race car?
The car is good. We just had a small problem on choosing of tires, but anyway, the race is long, and we can still win.
All right, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
And now the 7 and the 20 car running together on the racetrack. They're leaders in the Can-Am division.
That's Andy Wallace, the race leader, coming up behind the number 7 Ferrari, red, white, and green, trying to put him back down that lap that Max Angelelli's worked so hard to get back just a few laps ago.
And it looks like Mcnish has got his tires up to temperature and is running strong, so he'll probably be able to stay out in front of the Dyson car. But it's interesting. It sounds like the Pirelli guys have not kind of nailed the tire compound for this Ferrari. You know, they've been changing tires every stop. The Dyson guys have been going 3 fuel tanks on 1 set of tires. So pretty interesting equation there on the tire front.
They've done a lot of tire testing for Goodyear, so they can expect those tires to be pretty favorable to their racing setup. An amazing story. Andy Wallace has competed in 10 Rolex 24s and won 2 of them. Some guys work forever just to get finished in this race. He's won twice. We'll take a break. We're open all day here at the Rolex 24. GT2 highlights coming up. Daytona International Speedway in hour 20 of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. It's been a great race thus far, and there is more greatness in store, you can be sure. You're riding with our leader in the GT2 category, the premier production-based race car category. And this is a great story. The all-new, top-secret, full-factory Chevrolet Corvette effort. And we've got more action in the pit lane as you watch our race leader flying across the start-finish line. There is James Weaver in the number 16 Dyson Ford. That car currently shown in 4th place. Down to the pits.
And as Weaver brought the car down pit road, he shut it off and it coasted into its stall. They went through the routine pit stop, then they removed the bonnet. They do have an oil leak of some sort in the engine compartment. So this team, which lost critical hours overnight, is now losing valuable laps here in the early morning hours as Weaver sits in the car and the crew seeks to see if they can find the source of the problem. Then they'll have to figure out how to repair it. So it's an oil leak problem on the 16 car. Remember, their team car, the 20 car, is the race leader. Meanwhile, the 72 car, the Ferrari, just pulled behind the wall. They've had a very, very long 24-hour race.
Well, Bill, you know, looking at the camera, the 16 car, oh, this is interesting, the 72 car coming in, but look at the oil down the side pod. See the oil there? And I would say that they're having an oil cooler problem up in the nose of the car, because James Weaver has got that can of brake clean. He's trying to clean his shoes off. So he's getting oil on his shoes. It's probably a cooler problem up front. It's coming all the way up through the wheel well, all the way along the side pod down into the back.
That oil is no doubt hot. So our 4th and 5th place cars in the overall.
There's a rag stuck here. I can't quite get it out, mate. That's right, I've got it, thanks.
The number 72 car we just saw rolling towards the garage area. That car was as low as 54th in the overall running during the nighttime hours, but they fought their way all the way back to 5th place, and now they've got problems once again. They are 46 laps down to the race leaders.
Donnie, take that stuff in the back, see if you can soak up some of that oil.
So these guys having a tough time. They're already 58 laps down from the leader. We saw that.
If it looks like we're poorly placed, mate, and it's going to rain, should I scrub some tires for those guys? That'll make a big difference.
So what James Weaver is saying, listen, we're not going to win the race.
I'll win them the race.
Put some sticker tires on my car. I'll scrub them for the other car, and then they've got better tires, so when they leave the pit lane, it doesn't take them as long to get up to speed. He's thinking about his teammate.
What a great effort from James Weaver, thinking of his teammates when he knows that his race has pretty much been run here at Daytona. We understand it's a gearbox problem for the number 72 car as we go back on board with the number 2 Chevy Corvette, 6th overall, but leading his class over a Porsche 911. John Paul Jr., former series champion and the Daytona winner, behind the wheel right now. Let's take this opportunity to bring you up to date on what's been going on in GT2. Our story coming in was a battle between the Le Mans winning Dodge Viper and the all-new Chevy Corvettes. Problems early on for the Viper, a flat left rear tire. But he was able to make the pits. They got the tire replaced and got back out. Meanwhile, while the Dodge team had trouble, the Corvettes rolled on and on. The number 4 car doing well. Scott Sharp getting out here. Andy Pilgrim getting in. Sharp brought us up to date on the car's performance.
Well, you know, the Corvette's it's really performing well. We're just trying to set our pace, not really let it be dictated by anybody else. So we're just cruising right along and trying to stay out of trouble.
But that's easier said than done here at Daytona. The Viper team continued to have problems. Contact on course. Olivier Beretta was behind the wheel.
I did some damage to the steering rack and where it mounts to the car, so to fix it here, there'd still be some integrity problems or issues that we weren't real sure about.
We came here to learn some stuff for this year's FIA GT Championship. You know, we've learned some of those things. We proved that the car can be fast. It's the fastest GT2 car here. But you can never count on an accident.
Meanwhile, Andy Pilgrim over in the Corvette pits brought the car in with pump problems. and lost many laps while the sister car moved into the class lead. Ron Fellows out, Chris Neifel in.
We've been trudging along here, and now we're leading with a fairly nice, comfortable lead. We can be conservative now through the night, and hopefully nothing will go wrong.
Well, something always seems to go wrong here at Daytona. Fellows' luck turned sour at 4:45 a.m. with a damaged half shaft and an overheating problem. But the crew got to work. They had a big lead. They were able to get the car fixed and stay out at the head of the class. And that's where they are right now. A remarkable effort from the drivers, from the car builders, and the pit crews for that all-new Chevrolet Corvette on its return to racing here at Daytona. There is our GT2 leader, currently running in 6th place after a couple of Can-Am cars. We watched make long pit stops. James Weaver remains in the pits. There's a look at our night riders in the GT2 class. The Viper led for a time, and both Corvettes have had turns in the lead.
And these are certainly the cars we expected to see up front, but not far behind these guys. I mean, the 2 car right now does not have a big lead, only 5 laps, and we know they're having oiling problems. So this victory certainly not secure. Victory for them certainly not secure in any sense.
Second place car in the class is only 5 laps behind the class leader. And what would that car be, of course? A Porsche 911 for Andre Arl, Hubert Hopp, David Warnock. Here's a look at the overall. Can-Am cars out front. Our GT2 leader runs in 6th. The GT3 leader just 1 place behind him. We'll be back. Slowly but surely, daylight is returning to Daytona International Speedway. The lighting system has now been turned off, predominantly off. Fuel standards are still on out there. It takes a while to ramp these lights up and down. The biggest lighting project in history. Fire up Daytona International Speedway for nighttime stock car racing, and they have been a big addition to the 24-hour race here at Daytona. This is our first place car, Andy Wallace, the number 20, Riley and Scott Ford. Coming up behind one of the GT entries. 4 classes in all in competition here at Daytona. And the speed differentials between Can-Am cars, such as the one you see right there, and the GT classes, the GT2, GT3, and GTT, those speed differentials can lead to some hairy moments on the racetrack, especially in the nighttime hours.
Well, especially when you get into these last 6 hours of the race, where everyone is more fatigued and just not as sharp as they were, and you get into this rhythm, but you're so fatigued, it's just so hard. Andy Wallace, I mean, he has to continue to push hard. Yes, they have a 3-lap lead, but you heard Butch Leitzinger talking about that car. They've got debris down in the pedal box, which is messing with the brake pedal and the throttle pedal. They're not just cruising here. They're working very hard, and he's hustling that car around.
Look around the horizon, we can see that cottony rain falling out of the base of storm clouds all around us, the kind of rain that sailors look for. We can see as far as Cape Canaveral from here atop the grandstand at Daytona International Speedway. I'm told there's going to be a communication satellite launch tonight. Too bad we didn't have that this morning to show you. Andy Wallace with 5 endurance victories in 12 and 24-hour competition. 2 Rolex 24s at Daytona. 2 Le Mans 24 hours, and then a win at the 12 hours of Sebring. There's the number 7 Ferrari. John McLaughlin, team manager, talking to Alan Mcnish. Mcnish was a late entry to this team. Wayne Taylor, the lead driver, and the rest of the team decided they wanted a 4th man on the team. Then Taylor took sick just before the race began. That man was Alan Mcnish, and he has done a great drive.
And guys, look at this lap time. McNish's last lap, 105 seconds to the Andy Wallace car at 109. Now we understand Andy Wallace just pitted, but that last lap time, that was a representative last time. Now, you can see they're changing tires. They've been going 3 fuel stints on tires, so that was the end of the life on the tires.
The fuel.
Clearly costing them time. So McNish had gained about a half a lap there. Let's go down to Bill Weber.
And they are changing tires on the race-leading Ford. No driver change, fueling it. Routine stop for these guys. Lock on the lugs. Now they're all set. drops the car, and heads right back out. So very smooth for the Dyson team at that point. The 16, meanwhile, continues to sit, covered with oil. Weaver very dejected in the car, but they continue to work on it, and they'll hope to get him back out.
Let's go back to the 7 car for a moment. We just gave you his last lap time, a 1:45. This car was qualified on row 2 for this race at a 1:42. That's how hard Alan Mcnish is driving right now, trying to make up the 3 laps that separate them from the race leading number 20.
And this is the great time to do it, too, because the traffic is so thinned out that Alan can really put his head down and get some good laps in. And that is a pretty gutsy pass right there. And this is our GT3 leader in for what looks like very routine service.
Classic Porsche 911. Let's get down to the pits.
And the pole-sitting Team Seattle, Alex Joe Porsche, is on pit road. It is a routine stop. They are going to make a driver change that's already completed. Lazaro is out. Daryl Havens from Seattle, Washington gets in. They clean the windshield. They've got the tires on. Yokohama tires, sticker tires, or green tires if you prefer. They've got a little front-end damage, but nothing that's going to slow these boys up. They continue to be the leader in GT3, and Havens takes it back out on the racetrack.
Cold tires. Watch their guardrail.
That's right, the guardrail right next to the pit exit. So many times we've seen cars, cold tires spin right into that guardrail. Here's a look at the leaderboard. Anthony Lazaro brought the car in. Second place Porsche, third place.
Fuel switch is turned on the main and not reserve.
Going through the
Where's the main switch? Just make sure the reserve is in the off position.
Right, wrong car for the other one, right?
They're both the same now.
Marty Reed.
Well, we're down here in the number 17 pit, the BMW camp. This is a privateer effort. Randy Popes brought the car in. You know, everybody expected 2 factory Tom Milner cars to lead the charge. It's now up to you. You're 4th.
Well, I gotta say it's a TC Klein team, and the Aspen Knolls BMW has just held together so well. It amazes me how we can take a car like the M3 that, unlike many race cars, this is heavily based on the street car. It's unbelievable that it can be run so hard for so long. It's a credit to the TC Klein crew and to the drivers. My co-drivers have done a great job with a great car. It's a ball to drive. It's really easy.
Now, it is running a little warm, though, right? It is running a little warm, though, right?
Yeah, we've got a special radiator set up on our M3 that TC Klein and Alan Jensen put together using an oil-to-water cooler, not a normal oil cooler. And it worked great at first, but it's been getting warmer and warmer. But the good thing is the gauges all quit working, so we don't know.
They're hoping the cloud cover sticks around too, guys.
Talk about seat-of-your-pants race driving. Randy Popes, the former champion in the North American Touring Car title chase. He's racing in his home state. He hails from Melbourne, Florida. His wife, Linda, also a racing driver. On board in the Racers Group car. Going down the backstretch. There's the flashing light to remind you, as if you needed it, to turn left. Did you ever forget a corner in a racing situation?
Well, I've gone straight at the chicane back there a couple of times.
Okay. Big of you to admit it.
It's not because I didn't know I was supposed to turn left, though. I knew I was supposed to turn left.
Running 24th in the order right now.
You can actually see here, this is actually the tachometer here, which is actually not very much in the driver's line of view. You can see the scale coming up there on the tachometer. That is the 19 car, which is the GT2 leader, as they come down through the tri-oval. The Porsche will be much better on the brakes coming into the braking zone for turn 1.
See all the racers tape on the front of it. You heard what Randy Popes said about action on the racetrack. Now, a few moments ago, here's what happened to this car. What were we saying about brakes?
Well, he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure if that hole was going to open up or not, but he was, whether it was going to open up or not, he was going in there.
Well, we said it earlier in the day. We could talk about Vipers and the Corvettes and all the other cars out here, but When all is said and done, there's a fleet of privately entered Porsches in this race, and they're going to have something to say about who wins in the GT categories. Andy Wallace leads. Alan Mcnish now into the 7 Ferrari in second. Welcome back to Daytona International Speedway, where the Rolex 24 is in its 20th hour. Daytona Week is coming your way on ESPN Classic. It starts February 8th at 9 p.m. We'll present a week of the great moments of the Daytona 500. Earnhardt, Yarborough, Allison from the 79 Daytona 500 all the way to the 1991 version of the great race. A week of heart-thumping, pedal-to-the-metal action. February 8th, Daytona Week on ESPN Classic. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. Andy Wallace sharing the car with Elliott Forbes Robinson, and Butch Leitzinger leads the way.
And judging by that last lap, those new tires have made a huge difference for the 20 car. No question about it.
Brake lights flash as he dives down into turn 1. Slower traffic ahead. That's one of the GT Chevy Camaros up ahead. Driver very professionally gets out of the way of the race leader, and you see the number 7 coming up from behind. That's Alan Mcnish, the Scot, with the bit firmly between his teeth, trying to make up a lap on the race leader.
And right now showing 3 laps down. That would put him 2 laps down
if he can catch and pass Wallace. Bill Weber.
Well, the 02 Porsche is currently second in GT3, 5 laps behind the leader, but they're 10th overall. David Murray, this team was only put together less than 2 months ago. You guys are having a great 24-hour race.
I'll tell you, the Riser Callis concept even arrived like December 4th. I didn't sign on until after Christmas, so it's been a last minute. We haven't gotten all the changes to the car we wanted to. I know what to do from the years past running this car. Matter of fact, the car I ran was the car that's leading right now. But we got most of it done. The car's been running like a Rolex watch, perfect. So we're real happy with it. We're just going to stay out there and just tick away.
What's your best hope of catching the race leader in your GT3 class?
Well, I think they've been having a few problems with some axles. We have had none because we've been riding the car high enough and we don't have as wide tires as they do, so it's not as taxing on the axles. So that's our hope right now. That car will have some problems with that, and we'll just keep on running and pass them while they're in the pits.
Very impressive day.
Thanks. It's been a great day for the whole team. You know, it's our first professional race, I believe. I think it's even the last. Somebody told me it's the last air-cooled Porsche race car ever built. So it's going to be kind of a neat concept for the team, being able to run so well without, you know, just having any expectations. But maybe sometimes that's what you ought to do, is not expect so much, and you end up having a better finish.
And you're going to try and make a couple of cup races this year, Winston Cup races.
Yeah, definitely. With Phoenix here, Midway Island, we're going to do Sears Point in June, and August we're going to do Watkins Glen. Those are definite. Probably, I'd say 98% we're going to do Indianapolis and the second Pocono, maybe Talladega, and maybe even here in July.
Okay, we'll see you there. Best of luck here this morning.
Thank you very much.
And David Murray will be getting into that 02 Porsche in about 16.5 minutes.
He's the leader of that team. He's been on the podium twice in the GT categories here. 2 of his teammates are Daytona rookies, and one, Grady Willingham, was 5th back in 1996 in the GT3 class. Mad Max Pappas is back in the Ferrari, and if you were watching this race in 1996, you know what the Italian can do in one of these Ferrari 333 SPs. He was cutting laps faster than qualifying pace and got within 65 seconds of the overall race leader when the race was done. Let's go to Marty Reed.
Yeah, guys, the gentleman who just climbed out of the car, former FedEx Car champion, Jimmy Vasser. Give us an update on the car first.
Car's not bad. We're running pretty good, but we were leading, I don't know, around 10 o'clock in the night. And, we had a wheel fall off when Stefan got in the car, and we lost 15, 18 laps. So we've been going good ever since. Moved up to 3rd, but you know, the 7 car and the 20 car haven't really had any problems.
What about the experience for you?
It's a little bit different, you know. I got a test at Homestead tomorrow, so I hope my Target Ganassi team's not mad at me if I'm a little tired, but you know, I wanted to always do something with Stefan Johansson, and he's a good friend of mine, and also Max Pappas. We talked about how fun it would be, and now I'm starting to second guess my decision, but I think I'm having a good time.
Go-karting at Stefan's go-kart place in Indianapolis would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. It's pretty cool, though, to come out and do something a little different, you know.
I can give you one bit of possible good news. The forecast is for rain tomorrow at Homestead. So he may not have to test after all.
That's good news or not. We want to win the championship, but I'll be beat tired.
He may not have to test if it rains, though, guys.
I think I'm having a good time. That may be one of the classic comments in Daytona history. Well, Jimmy Vasser joins a long line of open-wheel champions who have come here and raced. Mario Andretti, not the least of them. Here's a look at our overall leaderboard. I recall a story I was once told by David Hobbs when the great Jochen Rindt got into a sports car with Graham Hill to run a 24-hour race. They beat on the car as hard as they could because they wanted to break it and get out of the race as early as possible. Somehow the car held together into the morning hours the next day, and then they tried to baby the thing because they put in so much time and effort. They thought, oh my gosh, we can't have it stop now. We got to try to win the race. Those sorts of things happen in 24-hour racing. As you look at 11th through 20th, the number 16 Dyson car is back on the track with Dorsey Schrader behind the wheel. Perhaps scrubbing tires. Those rain tires may be needed. It is not only overcast, it is misty here at Daytona. The weather story is far from told, and I would bet money that it is going to rain here within the next 4 hours or so. 41st through 50th. Mostly GT cars, a couple of Can-Am cars scattered in there. Brian Cunningham, there you see, shown in 59th position. That car is out of the race. They had problems very early on. He is a grandson of the great Briggs Cunningham. They built great sports cars to compete in endurance competition for many years. Jan Lammers, a former Daytona winner in the Lotus Lola Turbo, also out very early on. And Bob Wallach, a four-time winner here, who hit the fence in a GT car in the first couple of hours yesterday. Here's one of the Corvettes in for what looks like routine maintenance. Marty Reed, how's it look?
Well, guys, it may not be routine. The battery light came on, so they are in the process of evaluating that. They may make a battery change. Remember also, the last two times this car has been in for a pit stop, they have been forced to add oil. It's been drinking it faster than water. Right now, it looks like, yep, the pins are coming off, and looks like they're going to go underneath the hood. Yes, the oil is also going in again. So there is a problem still with it sucking up oil. And right now, they're looking underneath into the engine compartment as well, trying to check for any electrical problems. Let's go back to the GTT story. The motor is shut off. We'll keep you updated here.
The class leader is on pit road, the 19 car. They are making a driver change. They will put in Craig Carter, and he will take over the driving duties. Now they're going to take off the rear of this car, and they're going to make an adjustment. I believe they're just going to check the oil back here. That appears to be what they're doing, checking fluids back here to make sure everything's okay. Remember, these guys have a huge lead in their division, so the oil level is okay. The driver's getting strapped into the car, and you can see Carter sitting in there, getting some help from his crew. And meanwhile, this team ready to put the rear back on this car, and then they'll send it back out on the racetrack. Down to Marty.
Corvette is still in the pits. You can see they are spraying all of the belt assembly areas and trying to keep those lubricated. And now they've shut the motor off again. So there's still some concern here in the Chevrolet Corvette camp. They still had a 4-lap lead. Now it looks like they're going to put the car back together, and they're hurriedly trying to get him back out onto the racetrack. No battery change, though. We can tell you that they did not go for the battery.
Well, they may have felt they were getting some belt slippage there, and maybe the alternator just wasn't fully charging the battery. You know, these cars have a tremendous load on the alternators because of the high-pressure fuel pumps and the headlights, and there are just so many things. You know, but again, you have to go back to the debut of a brand new race car at a 24-hour race, and it is really just a tremendous effort by this whole team, and this car is still running. It's still running strong. We're almost 20 hours in.
Are these new tires, sticker tires.
And once again, they go through the driver checklist as a driver takes over with new tires, fuel settings, and so forth. Now they're trying to be not only the class winner, but the first GT car to finish. They have just a couple of laps over the leader in the GT3 category, the number 23 Porsche that just keeps ticking along. There you see the crew conferring. They actually have two separate crews. One crew from Pratt & Miller who built the cars, one crew from Riley and Scott, who built a number of the Can-Am cars in this race. 2 all-star crews battling each other as well as the competition. We'll be back. We are live Sunday morning, January 31st, 1999 at Daytona International Speedway, and the Rolex 24 goes on in its 37th running. The second car in line there is your race leader, Andy Wallace from England, in the number 20. Now let's update the weather situation. Radar is now telling us that we may be able to avoid the rain. It is completely clouded over, and in the distance, objects far away are being obscured by what appears to be rain, but it looks like we might yet avoid it. Now the sister car to the number 20, Dyson Racing Riley and Scott Ford, the number 16 is back out on the racetrack. They had heavy oiling problems. They see the car and a plume of oil smoke from behind. Ooh, problems back there in turn number 5 for one of the GT cars.
It looked like the smoke was coming out of the pipe, and that car not moving particularly quickly.
Number 79 for Tony Muleo, who's been here for many years, second in the GTT category.
Yeah, many laps down, and actually that car was parked on pit road for well over an hour this morning when we got here, kind of at about 5:30 this morning. And I wouldn't imagine the USRRC officials are going to let that car run around that slowly, because that really is not a safe speed.
It's an all-Florida effort. Richard McGarry and Tony Muleo joined Sim Benton in that car. Well, excuse me, Benton from Montgomery, Alabama. So it's an all-Southern effort. Up onto the 31-degree banking, a Ferrari sparks from the rear, car running fairly low. No minimum ride height on these cars, and the Can-Am cars are flat bottom. So it's not unusual to see a little bit of sparking out the bottom. Now we watch the number 7 with Alan Mcnish at the controls, lapping at just 2 seconds over his qualifying pace. That may be too hard for the conditions. That car is in, and Bill is there.
And obviously they're going to give up some track position. Mcnish gives a thumbs up, saying everything's okay. Takes a drink from the water bottle. He gets 4 sticker tires, tosses out the water bottle, heads to the photographer. Everybody's okay. They'll tighten on the wheel, tighten the lugs, snap them back into place, continue fueling the car. Remember, Wayne Taylor has only done 1 stint in this car, battling the effects of stomach flu. Mcnish with a quick stop. Now he will continue to chase the 20 car.
Now we overheard a radio transmission from the Dyson pits saying the team thinks that Mcnish might be pushing this car a little too hard in his effort to make up time. That is one of the stories that remains to be seen, however.
Well, but don't forget Max Pappas 3 years ago. He thrashed that car. He was actually under his qualifying speed in the last hour of the race. So we know that these Ferraris are capable of going fast late in the race. You know, if you can get them there, they can go fast. I think in reality, the Dyson cars are much more fragile than the Ferraris.
Here's a look at the overall. Mcnish back to 3 laps down in the Ferrari. Max Pappas pounding around. He is 15 laps down. As Andy Wallace continues to lead with less than 4.5 hours to go now. Still a lot of racing still to come here at Daytona. And joining us in the booth now, we're proud to welcome David Donohue, whose Le Mans class-winning Dodge Viper is out of the race. David, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let's review what happened to your car during the night.
Well, I wasn't driving. Olivier Beretta was driving, and apparently he went to pass a slower car down the inside of 1 who didn't see him, and the car turned up the track and hit his right front very hard and fatigued the steering rack mounting system as well as the rack itself.
So what do you make of this challenge, this whole Corvette Viper challenge?
Oh, I think it's fantastic. It's very exciting. The Corvette's a beautiful car, as you see here. The Viper has proven itself to be a race-winning car, a very durable car. And what took us out of this race had nothing to do with the team's preparation, even though we only had really 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get ready for this race.
Now, your team has been saying this was basically a test run, that your real goal is the 24 hours of Le Mans. With the accident, were you able to learn what you wanted to?
Well, yeah, we learned a lot because given, you must have seen in the coverage last night, the traffic was really horrendous. And that kind of experience for the drivers, as well as the situations we had with the cut tires, you can never get that in private 24-hour testing, which we do usually at Paul Ricard, and we're the only ones on the track. So the whole atmosphere is different in a race weekend, and it really gets the team seasoned well. What we really want is the Dodge Viper to win 24 Hours of Le Mans.
But how do you compare this to Le Mans? Because at Le Mans, you don't have the slower GT3 cars.
It's a lot more difficult. All the drivers were commenting that Le Mans seems to be much easier, not only track to drive, but the traffic is easier to manage, because here the track is like a third the length and twice the traffic. So you're constantly coming up on cars.
We'll ask David to stay with us as we continue with our live coverage of the Rolex 24. Corvette out front and running strong right now. Are there questions about its health? Yes. And there is still a long way to go in this race. We'll be back in just a moment. Heavy mist now falling on Daytona International Speedway as the 37th Rolex 24 continues. Bob Barsh along with Jeremy Dale. David Donohue from the Dodge Viper team in the booth with us. Marty Reed and Bill Weber are patrolling the pit lane. And our race leader, Andy Wallace, is going by that Corvette on the right. Is the leader in the GT2 category. Is that the number 3 Riley and Scott going by?
Yeah, that is the number 3 car. That's Danny Sullivan and the Whittingtons and Hurley Haywood. That car
driver lineup
is actually 113 laps down. If you want to talk about not having a good time, you know, being 113 laps down and still having to drive through the night.
Now the sister car to the number 20 that we saw having all those oiling problems has now pulled behind the wall. Let's get down to the pit lane.
And Elliott Forbes Robinson and James Weaver discussing things, and James a little choked up about the situation. Very disappointing, I imagine, for you.
Yes and no. We got one car in the lead. The other car was on pole. So it's all part of the game, really.
Leaking a lot of oil even on your shoes, James.
Yeah, I was driving around things getting really slippery, and I thought, some idiot's oiling the track down. And then I realized it was me.
Well, we've seen these Dyson cars battle to the end, smoking, limping to the finish. You feel the 20 has a good shot?
Yeah, the engines are absolutely flying this year. Benny Lozano's put an awful lot of work into them. And of all the stock block engines out there, we must have 40 or 50 horsepower more than anybody else. And everything looks mint on the engine, so we're very confident.
We heard you discussing the possibility of the 16 scuffing some tires for the 20. If you can get back out, is that an option to help them?
Yes, because if it rains and they've got scuffed tires to put back on when you go to slicks, that'll really help. But I won't be doing them any favors if I give them tires covered in oil. So we're going to fix the oil leak first.
Okay, well, best of luck to your teammate the rest of the way. Thanks for talking to us.
Thanks.
And they do want to get those tires scuffed in case it does begin to rain heavily, but it is misting right now around the entire 3.5-mile track. So weather, as we had predicted, is becoming a factor.
In fact, it is raining now. Look at the water on the GT2 class leading Chevy Corvette's windscreen, and you can hear from the sound of the engine, he has slowed that car down. He's going to have to bring it in.
And right behind him is one of the Can-Am Ferraris.
Better stop, full tires.
So it sounds like there's going to be some tire stops. Here's Mcnish pulling into his pit box. Let's see what they put on this car for tires.
This will make life interesting for the corner workers, and I'd like to take this opportunity to salute them from the Sports Car Club of America, most from the Central Florida region, but they're here from other regions around the country too, Atlanta, Chicago, and so forth.
Okay, you need to get some heat into these before you can lean on them, Alan, okay?
In fact, many of our corner workers here are Le Mans veterans.
Now the crew chief telling Alan Mcnish, you got to get heat in your rain tires before you lean on them. Of course, Alan knows that, but he's just being reminded a rain tire, like any other tire, needs heat. Like any other race tire, needs heat to work properly. So these first couple of laps on wet weather tires are very slow laps, but once they come up to heat, the grip in a rain tire is just phenomenal.
Pit lane went by the brightly colored Spirit of Daytona entry, an all-volunteer effort from right here in the Daytona Beach area, driving an all-wheel drive Mitsubishi Eclipse Turbo. Little twitch right there as Alan Mcnish finds the limit of the car's tires. Now keep in mind, he is a very experienced sports car driver. He knows what he's doing in the wet. Passing one of Jim Downing's Mazdas up high on the banking. David, what are your thoughts on driving in the rain in these cars?
Really, really fast.
I can see what Mcnish is going through, because He's on Pirellis right now, and I believe he was on Michelin's when he was with Porsche at Le Mans last year. And each tire manufacturer reacts differently, especially when they're cold. Once they're up to temperature, as we mentioned before, they all act very similar.
Yeah, and I've always found that there's been greater differences in manufacturers on rain tires than dry weather tires. Let's go down to Bill Weber.
Well, the 20 car does pull on the pit road. This is your race leader, and they will make a driver change. They will put Elliott Forbes Robinson in the car, and they are going to the rain tires. These are Goodyear Eagles. These are treaded tires, basically just a race version of what you have on your street car at home. Regular treaded tires to try and help channel the water away. So Robinson gets in. Obviously, this is the most uncomfortable part for the driver, because in these open cockpit cars, this is really the only time he'll get wet, when the car is stopped or perhaps going slow under caution. The rest of the time, the rain doesn't bother them all that much. Meanwhile, working with the right rear tire, having a problem getting the right rear tire on the car. Robinson still being buckled in to the car, getting its cords all hooked up. Now they're ready to go. They pull out the hose, they drop the car, and Elliott Forbes Robinson will have to tiptoe down pit road and get heat into these tires.
Whoops, already we've got a victim. This is in the International Horseshoe. Car number 07. Another fundraising effort for Children's Hospital. Now the GT2 class leader is in, Marty Reed.
Yeah, the wet shoes are on for the number 2 Corvette. Ron Fellows is climbing in. They're going to add more oil again. I guess this is going to be a regular routine for this team. They do have a new battery system set and ready to install, but it looks like they do not need it as of now. If you noticed, what they did after the last stop was turn off all the electricals that they did not need, including the headlamps. So Fellows finally getting cinched up. Reset your fuel, Ron. And there you go for the cue to reset fuel, and they'll be on. Hang on, we got some more oil to put in. Yep, they're still waiting for more oil. I'm gonna let him do the pit stop. He's doing a much better job of calling it than I am.
No, Marty, they couldn't do that. But you know what's interesting about the wet, and I think for the Corvette team, they're going to like this, is that when it rains, especially when it rains hard, you can't push the car as hard. You don't use as much full throttle. You don't use the brakes as hard. The car does not get stressed nearly as hard as it does in the dry. And so when you have a car that's ailing a little bit, the rain is actually a good thing, because it really lets you save the car more.
Okay, wiper on, Ron. Wiper on. Lights on, Ron. Lights on.
Open face helmet. We haven't seen many of those thus far in this race. Ron Fellows from Canada. Good adverse weather driver. That struggle you may be hearing in the background is us pummeling our weatherman, who said the rain might miss us. Back onto the racetrack he comes, yanking on those belts. Can't get him too tight, especially when the track is wet. So our class leader is out with a 4-lap lead over the second-place car in GT2. They're all running well behind race leader Elliott Forbes Robinson. Moisture on the camera lens tells you everything you need to know about what's happening here at the Rolex 24. The rain continues to drizzle down. It has lightened up just a little bit, but the track is pretty thoroughly wet. Most of the cars have switched to treaded rain tires as you watch race leader Andy Wallace making his way around with what is now a 2-lap lead over the number 7 Ferrari in the hands of Scotsman Alan Mcnish. Mcnish, who won the 24 Hours Le Mans outright and won the now banned GT1 class here at Daytona.
And you saw his last lap speed at an average of 98 miles per hour. 98 miles per hour. Mcnish just did a 109 mile per hour average speed lap. So Mcnish at this point running quite a bit quicker. Now that's probably due to more heat in Mcnish's tires at this stage, because Wallace was just in a lap or two ago. But right now, Mcnish is catching Wallace at a good clip, which we're going to have to watch Andy Wallace's lap times and average speeds here as he brings that car up to speed. But right now, Mcnish by far the quickest race car on the racetrack.
See that steering wheel with the flat bottom to clear his knees. Very efficient use of space in these Ferraris. There's a comparison of last lap speeds for this car compared with the class leader, and as Jeremy pointed out, an 11-mile-an-hour gap in favor of Mcnish in the Ferrari.
And I made a mistake. It is Elliott Forbes Robinson got in that car. They did just stop, and EFR got in the car. So that was my mistake. But look at his hands, and he's going to be very busy in this car.
That is Mcnish from the outside on the lower left of your screen.
David, have you ever driven here in the wet up on the high banks?
Only driven in heavy mist, not actual rain, but it wasn't enough to put rain tires on. But from what I understand, the banking is pretty close to flat out, even when it's raining, because the rain just drains right down to the bottom anyway. If you're down on the bottom, it's a different story.
Yeah, no, you don't want to be down on the bottom. You want to be right up next to the wall. Right up next to the wall.
Well, that way, if anything happens, you don't have too far to go.
And you don't have too far to go.
You made the point off camera, Jeremy, that the guys do not get wet in these open cockpit cars, even when it's raining fairly heavily.
Yeah, I mean, you know, until you slow down, I mean, the time you would get the wettest would be if they go to full course yellow. If someone goes off the racetrack and it's raining under full course yellow, you'll definitely get wet. But aerodynamically, if the nose box on the car is well sealed and the wheel wells are sealed, you won't get wet. For the most part, the air will just go up over your helmet, and certainly any water that hits your helmet will just roll back off it and run off the helmet.
He just went by my old announce booth colleague for the kart series, Danny Sullivan. There's that white car in the background. That's the one Sullivan shares with Hurley Haywood and Don and Dale Whittington. They are well back in the field after a fraught evening. They were having problems early yesterday afternoon.
Quicker than car number 20.
That's John McLaughlin, the team manager, telling Alan Mcnish.
And boy, is that ever inspiring to hear that you're catching the lead car at 11 seconds a lap. I mean, that really, you know, when you're sitting in that seat and you're driving that race car, that is so inspiring to hear that.
Oh, take a look at this update. Last lap, 112 miles an hour, 9 miles an hour faster than the class leader, and you see the time gap on the left. That's a 1:53. This car qualified for this race at 1:42. An absolutely phenomenal speed in the conditions. Let's go to Marty Reed.
Yes, guys, we're down here with Lillian Briner, currently running in 4th. You guys got a nice, steady, consistent ride going.
Yes, we went through the night really well. We didn't push it too hard because we want to go through and not having any mechanical problems. Till now, everything is going fine, so we hope, you know, maybe to get to a 3rd place.
So the strategy is just maintain, don't try and push?
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks, Lillian. Good to see you again.
Okay, thank you.
Former champion of the GT3 category and one of 3 women drivers in this race. Lillian Briner knows what she's doing out there.
And you can see on her suit she had an USRRC patch, which is the European series that these open cockpit cars run in, and that team did that championship last year.
The International Sports Racing Series, their champion, Vincenzo Sospiri, is on one of the Ferrari team driver lineups. I believe he was in one of the Kevin Doran cars.
You know, you guys talk about the rain in the open cockpit cars. I think the closed cockpit, the GT cars, have more of a problem in the rain with visibility, because inside those cars it's like a sauna, and every little drop of moisture just turns to steam, and it gets on the windshields. All your vent tubes and everything catch all the water and throw it right at your helmet and all kinds of stuff. That's the problem we ran into at Homestead last year in the Dodge Viper.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I was at that race, and that was a real South Florida downpour at Homestead. But I totally agree. I'd much rather be in an open cockpit car than a closed car. You know, you would think you can see the wiper on the Corvette there, you know, doing its job. But as you say, David, you know, there's so many areas where the water can come in, and you know, you have misting problems, and then especially at the end of a 24-hour race, this windshield is so pitted that the water really, the wiper doesn't even help you that much because the windshield is such a mess.
And oil soaked as well, so I mean that doesn't help the situation at all.
No, not at all.
On board the number 68 car, 4th in class and 12th in the overall right now. Now look at an open cockpit car for Alan Mcnish. All you need to do is have tearaways on that visor, and you've got a clean field of vision.
Yeah, fortunately for the GT cars, it's not raining too heavily, so they may not run into any kind of a fogging problem here.
In fact, I think the rain has stopped, and the clouds are breaking up a little bit again. Nobody headed for the pit lane to change back to slicks just yet. As you ride with Alan Mcnish, rain gear still on many of the teams along the pit lane. They have their jobs to do throughout this 24-hour marathon. Stay with us. Back live at Daytona, high on the banking, race leader Elliott Forbes Robinson and the Dyson Riley and Scott Ford. Not really raining right now, just sort of an active mist. But the track is thoroughly wet, and all the cars are on rain tires. Now, coming up next on ESPN2, following our coverage, which ends at 1:30 Eastern Time, NFL's greatest games. You'll see Super Bowl III here on ESPN2. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. There's the number 68. That's a GT3 car, 4th in class, 11th overall, 71 laps behind the race leader. Kevin Buckler, Michael Conti, Nick Holt, Bruno Lambert, all from Seattle, save for Buckler, who hails from Sonoma, California. All of them veterans of this race, although none of them have won. Holt and Lambert have been on the podium, as has Michael Conti. Right now they're parked in the pits. Can't tell what tires might be going on.
It looks like stickers to me. Sticker slicks.
Yeah, it's a very awkward time because it's one of those things where if you were to put probably the racetrack is wet enough that if you put slicks on it, you're going to have a very tough time getting them up to temperature. Whereas if you put wets on, you probably know that in 5 or 6 or 8 laps you're going to want to come back in and put stickers on. So it's kind of a tough call if you're not out on the racetrack with warm tires right now.
And I think the really scary thing about being on slicks is just leaving pit lane. It's only 1 car length wide, and if it's wet on sticker slicks, that's really treacherous.
Absolutely.
Number 68 back out on the racetrack. Here's the class leader, the number 23, running 6th in the overall and just a couple of laps behind the leading Corvette in the GT2 category. So a great interclass battle going on there. There's the leaderboard just in the GT3 class. Let's get you updated now on what's been going on in that class through the night. Coming into the race, GT3 was set to be a battle between the BMWs and the Porsches, but problems early on for the 2-time defending champions. Stopped on course. Bill Auberland with a big mechanical problem, so unlike the Tom Milner-led team. But the boss wasn't giving up.
Somebody go over there and talk to the guy, Dave. Tell him he won. Don't leave the car at the end field. We won't go out of the way.
By the time it's taking to pull this whole thing apart, it seems to be kind of major.
Broken camshaft problems for that team. That put the number 6 in the GT3 lead, the sister car to the number 10, but not for long. Another major problem for the defending champs. In the driveline, Trans Am veteran Mark Simo behind the wheel, but they too refused to give up on their effort to make it a three-peat for the PTG team at the Rolex 24.
Some type of a vibration in the driveline. We think it might be the transmission right now. That's what they're going to try first. But it's just unfortunate. The BMW was running great. We had the thing well in hand, pacing ourselves, not taking any chances. But we're not sure yet. Hopefully it's something we can get in and out of here pretty quick.
But it wouldn't turn out that way. The car headed for the garage, and the number 23 Porsche, the pole-sitting car in the class, took over the lead. Kelly Collins climbing out. Kurt Wagner, who put the car on pole, getting in. Into the darkness, the Alex Job team held the lead in the early morning hours, but the number 33 Conrad Motorsports Porsche was hot on their trail until that team's efforts were derailed shortly after 1 a.m. when they found themselves on the sideline with a broken rear transaxle. 2.5 hours later, it was the class-leading number 23 car's turn to have trouble, as the Alex Job Porsche was forced into the pits for more mechanical repairs.
Unfortunately, we had a axle boot tear just a short matter of time before the CV joint was going to break. We had no choice but to come in. We were waiting for a yellow. We got a tiny little yellow there, but it wasn't enough. 6-lap lead down to 2 now.
And so it was through the night. A multi-car battle in GT3. The number 6 car had its share of time in the lead. The number 23 Porsche has led pretty much since that time. As I mentioned, currently runs 6th. An axle boot broke. You can break things here that you've never heard of before.
Well, that's just a little
your dream.
That's just a little rubber cover that goes over the constant velocity joint, and once it breaks, all the grease flies out within, seconds, and the CV is just going to go. Can't last.
The classic $2 part that can ruin a very expensive and time-consuming effort. That's the way it is at the Rolex 24. We'll be back with more live from Daytona. 20 hours down, 4 hours to go in the twice around the clock grind that is the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Welcome back live to Daytona International Speedway. Heavy cloud cover, slight fog, and misting rain as Alan Mcnish in his number 7 Olive Garden Ferrari 333 SP tries to claw back what is now a 2-lap deficit to our overall leader. That man, Elliott Forbes Robinson from Charlotte, North Carolina, in a Ford-powered Riley and Scott chassis. Let's get down to Bill Weber.
With Max Crawford calling the shots on the 20 car. Obviously, you went to rain tires, and the Ferrari picked up some time on you there for a couple of laps, Max.
We expected them to. They put Mcnish in the car, and he's probably very good in the rain. I think this is a bit of a cat and mouse situation now. I think we're only got the upper hand because we can watch them. They make the decisions and we can follow along. So it's in a situation where if they go to rains, we go to rains. If they go to dries, we can follow suit.
Do you have a rain ace that you can go to for this car?
No, not really. I'd say all of our drivers are very good in the rain. They're actually, I don't think any one of them is better than anybody else. Andy and Butch have both done a very good job for me in the past in the rain. So
you can't decide if it wants to rain or it wants to stop. And you did make one call earlier. You weren't happy with the tires, but this time looks like you went the right way. How do you decide when to make your next change?
Well, basically, I'm going to run it as I'm going to do exactly what I said. I'm going to follow the Ferrari. If they have to pit, remember they have to run us down. We have the upper hand right now, so. Yes, I did. Earlier on, I went to rain tires and made a huge mistake. That was a stupid mistake. The rain came in, but it's here to stay, so I'm going to follow along.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So Marty Reed in the 2-pitch.
Yeah, guys, they're working at both ends on the 2 car. They had an oil warning light come on, and they are back in for more oil. This is a lot earlier than Ron Fellows should have stopped. They're also spraying those belts again as they have got a battery warning light as well.
How those rear tires look?
They have a 3-lap lead right now in their division, but I should say on the 6th place car overall. The performance friction guys are looking at the brakes. It doesn't look like they're going to go ahead and make the change there, although they have shown some concern the last 2 stops about when they want to make
Goodyear's checking them right now, Ron.
brake change. And as you can see, Goodyear's already taking a look at the rain tires. You heard him talking about that on the radio as well. Because you're right, we're in between. The track is
John says they're fine.
The rain tires, but in essence, it looks like they are seeing some wear. What we're being able to see, I mean, he has not been out that many laps, but there has been some wear on those rain tires. So as the work continues down here, guys, the laps keep rolling by. We'll keep you posted.
Well, that raises an interesting point. You heard them say Goodyear is looking at the tires. Each team has its own tire specialist.
You can't stand on that air box, you'll break it.
But the manufacturers are here as well. Pirelli, Dunlop, Goodyear, Yokohama, Michelin. All of these tire companies want to be in victory lane here at Daytona. They have their engineers working on these tires as well.
I think it's also interesting to note they are worried about the wear on the tires, and that's usually a cause of the track is not quite really wet, and it's also not really dry, so they're not going to change away from them, but it's dry enough that it's overheating the tires as he's running.
And you know, here it's so hard because when it's in that in-between condition, you've got all that time you're out on the banking. It is so hard on the right side tires. It's not like a normal road course where you're just running down a straightaway, and when you're on the straightaway you're not building a lot of tire temperature, but on the phenomenal loads on the tires.
Sure, you see a lot of the low cars bottoming out because most of the cars are on their bump stocks. There's no more suspension travel.
Well, this is certainly a longer stop than they'd wanted. You can see they put an awful lot of oil in the car at the back. They actually had abandoned the pressurized oil container and were pouring it in you know, 1-quart containers.
What if they ran out of oil and had to run down the
water temp, Ron?
So much
190, 190.
Water temperature 190. Moved into 6th place behind Ron Fellows as he sits in the pit lane. That's the number 8 car, the support net car for Henry Camferdam, Duncan Dayton, and Scott Schubert.
I promise you, they only care about the 83 car. That is the car that, yeah, while they were sitting in the pits, that is the car that has moved into 6th place and will catch them is only 2 laps down from the Corvette. But they couldn't care less about this car. They only care about the 83 car, which is 3 laps back from where they are right now.
I can tell you, as we race the Dodge Viper, all we care about are the cars in our class. That's our race, not the other cars that are out there.
We've talked about it a little bit, David, but you know what the development process is like. The Vipers have been here for a bunch of years, and the car is now a proven commodity in endurance racing. What are your impressions of what this Corvette team has accomplished here?
Well, they've been working on this for quite some time. It's I keep saying, I stretch the imagination, a brand new car. I think they've been developing it for 5,000 miles and over a year now. So to come out the way they've come out is exactly what we've been expecting.
That Corvette not quite buttoned up yet in the pit lane. Marty Reed, can you add?
Yeah, guys, it looks like it could possibly be a valve cover. They have been working at the front of the engine, and you can see that they're leaning over right now, making some last-minute checks, and they began to come back and begin to take the process apart. And when you look at this motor, it is huge. There is a lot of plumbing that they're going to have to work through. This will be a very extended stop if it is truly a valve cover.
Well, that's not good news for the Corvette team. And certainly Ron Fellows' look says it all, sitting there sucking on that drink tube. One of the few guys these days who uses an open-face helmet in these production-based cars. Most guys have gone to a full-faced helmet, but certainly in a 24-hour race, the open-face helmet is nice. You stay cooler. It kind of gives you a more open feeling. Bob Wallach always used the open-face helmet.
What a frustrating time for Ron Fellows.
Let's see how long it'll go on this oil before the alarm comes on again.
Here's a look.
We can get ready to do it if we got to do it. We still got time.
But not much time, because that number 83 Porsche 911 GT2 is rushing up from behind on the racetrack. Now just 2 laps behind, and at less than 2 minutes a lap, they are going to be closing up very quickly. We'll take a break and return live to Daytona. We are back at Daytona International Speedway. Speed Weeks 1999 is officially underway. After the sports cars pull out, the Winston Cup stock cars pull in, and we've got it covered for you on ESPN and ESPN2 beginning February 3rd. Winston Cup and Busch Series practice and qualifying, the Bud Shootout qualifier, the First Plus Financial ARCA 200 race, the Goodies Dash race, the Discount Auto Parts 200. RPM tonight will air nightly from here at Daytona International Speedway, and on the morning of the Daytona 500, NASCAR Today will be live, bringing you up to date with new host Bill Weber, all of the last-minute breaking news before the great race unfolds, beginning February 3rd through the day of the 500 on ESPN and ESPN2. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. There's race leader Elliott Forbes Robinson, and the number 20 Dyson Racing, Riley and Scott Ford, with about 2 laps over the second place number 7 Ferrari. Both cars now turning roughly the same lap speeds, and the rain appears to have dried up completely. The track is still damp, but there is no moisture in the air. Elliott Forbes Robinson in his 16th Rolex 24. He has a victory and 11 top 10 finishes. Let's take a look a little bit further back, pick up some cars and look at them. A pair of nearly matching Porsches, a little tire smoke as someone wins the battle on the brakes, headed for the chicane. Let's see if we can pick up car numbers and tell you about some of these cars a little bit. There's the number 49 Porsche, the car running in the GT2 category for Freisinger Motorsports. The number 60 car up above him there on the high banks. That's an open cockpit Can-Am car running 36th in the overall. Well back in class. That is a Kopp Kyler Ford. That is a one-off car built by Kopp Precision Race Products. Tim Moser from Chandler, Arizona. Chris Wilson out of Newport Beach, California. And Barry Waddell, an old friend of ours, Jeremy Dale, from Evansville, Indiana. In fact, I think Barry Waddell is bunking with you this weekend.
Yeah, I'm trying to make a contribution to his racing program. I'm helping out.
There's the number 8 support net, Riley and Scott. Now, this is the car for Scott Schubad, Henry Campherdam.
And these guys have actually had a great race to this point, sitting 6th overall. Salazar, Eliseo Salazar added to this driver lineup late in the going. And they are 60 laps down, but you know, they weren't a team that was favored to win this race. But right now, 6th overall, 5th in class, to have a good shot at the top 5 overall.
Duncan Dayton and Eliseo Salazar in that car. Salazar was a pole sitter here at Daytona a couple of years ago in the Can-Am class.
And that is Salazar in the car right now, the green helmet.
I could tell you last night that was one of the stronger WSC cars. I mean, we can tell from the Dodge Viper because we had a lot of power that we had to lift for a lot of cars on the straightaway, and that was one of them that you could really go under in the corners under us.
There's the number 62, Kudzu Mazda. 3-rotor Mazda car out of Jim Downing's stables in Atlanta, Georgia. Downing, Mazda tuner, builds race cars. He calls them Kudzu chassis after that ubiquitous plant you see all over the telephone lines and covering trees like ivy here in the southern United States. He also has the number 63, a 4-rotor Mazda car with NEC sponsorship in this race. Downing, a former driving champion in the old Camel Lights category and what was then known as the International Motorsports Association. And they are plugging along in 24th place for the 63 car. The car you just saw, number 62, is in 16th place. Now here comes another of the Ferraris. This is the list of Ferraris for Freddie Lienhard and 3/4 of the overall winning team last year. Mauro Baldi of Italy, Didier Taze of Belgium, and Arie Luyendyk, the 2-time Indy 500 champion, now living out in the Phoenix area. And we saw during our highlight package that they suffered from gearbox problems during the night.
Yeah, they actually didn't know if it was a gearbox or a motor. Ended up changing the gearbox out and the input shaft and a bunch of parts on that car, and they lost about an hour and a half last night.
Currently shown in 13th place and the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th car in class. As you pick up the number 7 car, we know who these guys are. They have been battling for the lead since the green flag fell at 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. That is the number 7 Olive Garden Ferrari. Just behind him is the number 36 Ferrari, although they are 13 laps apart in the running order.
Well, you can really see how traffic is still an issue here. I mean, the number 7 car really got held up down there in turn 1 and allowed the 36 car to close up really quickly.
That 09 Mitsubishi they just went by, that's the all-volunteer Spirit of Daytona effort. Nobody making any money at all working on that car, but they work on it every year. They come out and race on their home track. Got a car, is that 79 you saw problems with before?
Well, there's your Spirit of Daytona there, and this is a great effort. These guys do work very hard. And this little Mitsubishi, actually, the car, it looks like it slowed down a little bit, but, you know, when the car is fresh and really running well, it's actually a pretty quick little car.
Twin turbocharged Mitsubishi for car dealer Craig Conway, Todd Fleece, Eric Van Cleef. Todd's father, Steve, works on the car, fields the effort in a garage behind someone's home here in the Daytona Beach area. Let's pick up another car. Here's the number 66 running in the GT3 category. 18th place in the overall right now. This is the PBS First Aid VA Tires Porsche 993 SC. Luca Catneo of Italy, Antonio De Castro, Massimo Morini, Angelo Scarpetta, and Luciano Tamburini.
You're the man.
Now there is a team that probably, I don't know, probably couldn't order at McDonald's here in town given the extent of their English, but they know all about the Rolex 24 and they wanted to be a part of it, and here they are running very, very well.
And this 95 car, this is Tom Vogt's car. Tom this year stepped up into a Riley and Scott, had one of Jim Downing's Kudzus in recent years, but has a Riley and Scott this year.
Paul Devin, Jarrett Schrader, Tom Volk, the car owner, and R.J. Valentine, Trans Am veteran from the Boston area up in Massachusetts, on that driving team. Lynn St. James has driven with them in the past. In fact, she was listed as a relief driver this weekend, but I don't believe she's been in the car. Once again, there's the Spirit of Daytona effort. On Toyo tires, I believe they're running that car on street radial tires.
And DOT tires, yes. They're pitted right next to the Dodge team, and you just look at it and wonder sometimes how they can do this race on DOT tires.
There's the 79 car. That's the car that's been smoking around the racetrack, the one we speculated that officials might black flag, but it appears they haven't. Meanwhile, the race leader, Elliott Forbes Robinson, with the Hawaiian logo around the top of his helmet. That's been his trademark over the years. He has been a champion in so many different series, including Atlantics. He has run Super Vs. He has run sports cars. Spent some time in a stock car, did EFR. We'll be back with more live coverage from Daytona. Stay right there. ESPN Speed World coverage of the Rolex 24 at Daytona is being brought to you by the new Dodge. It's about change. Back at Daytona, you saw rain on those rain tires, but rain is not falling at the moment, but stick around, it may change. Here's a look at the overall running order. Out front, Elliott Forbes Robinson in a Ford, chased by the Ferrari. How many times since 1960 or so has an announcer said it's Ford versus Ferrari here at Daytona? GT2 leader is Ron Fellows in that beautiful new Corvette C5R. The GT3 leader, Kelly Collins, in a Porsche 911, runs in 7th in the overall. What a great performance for them. A look at 11th through 20th. Another of the Ferraris running in 12th place. Mostly GT2 and GT3 cars. James Weaver in a car that has had a share of the lead runs in 17th. That car is basically out of the running for the championship, but they're trying to help their teammates by keeping tires scuffed and ready. 4 classes of cars in action here. The Can-Ams, the open cockpit show toppers. The GT2, GT3, and GTT category for tube frame race cars. Mostly heavy American Trans Am iron. You see some of the cars are out of the race for a variety of reasons.
You know what's really amazing to me is that Kelly Collins and the GT3 cars running where they are, because they're basically the second place GT car. And if you consider that the pole times were 10 seconds apart from GT2 to GT3, for them to be running second to a Corvette is just amazing. They must have had absolutely no problems up to this point.
Just ticking right along. A little over 3.5 hours to go. Here's Bill Weber.
And with that much time remaining, the story in Can-Am remains the battle between the 20 and the 7 car, both on rain tires right now. Who will come in first to go back to slicks? Meanwhile, the second place car in GT2 is on pit road, and our old buddy Andre Arle has just climbed into this car, replacing Hubert Howe. And this team is very fired up. Believe me, they are well aware of the problems the Corvette is having. They've been able to carve off laps and carve off time. Now they're going to put Andre Arle in the car to see if he can possibly rope in that struggling Corvette. This is a very fired up bunch. For more on the Corvette story, let's go to Marty Reed.
Thanks, Bill. The toolbox is on the wall right over my shoulder, and the discussions continue in the Corvette camp. They are trying to modify, believe it or not, a bucket system with a funnel so that they can get the oil into the car quicker. Now, it looks as though they're going to go with the gamble of continually just filling the oil when it stops each time until either the engine blows or if it just becomes a point where they have to make a change with that gasket. The other problem they have is what tires to go to, because they've got both slicks and ring tires sitting on the wall.
Well, Marty, very interesting point, because the car is not smoking in any significant way. Oh, there's a little puff there, but, you know, they're talking about pouring buckets of oil into the car. Where's the oil going? I mean, you see a little puff there, but where is all this oil going? If it's not all being burned up, where is it going? Is it getting laid down on the racetrack? Is it, you know, it's got to go somewhere.
Sloshing around in the bodywork somewhere. Here's the number 7 Ferrari, second in the overall and second in the Can-Am category. Alan Mcnish will get out. Looks like Didier Duretiguez will get in. 2 laps down to the race leaders. On board, there is Mcnish standing in the driver cockpit as he helps get Duretiguez belted in. Let's get a report.
Well, they have made the driver change and they have put the tires on. Mcnish has climbed out. Now they've got a problem. They can't seem to get the left front bolted on. And now they're going to go ahead and change the right front as well. They made a decision to go away from the rain tires, and they're going to go to slicks. That was the decision. So they were going to stay with the slicks or the rain tires. Now they decided to go with the slicks. Now Mcnish telling his co-driver about the track conditions. Now they wait. And the Ferrari returns to the racetrack. So they decided to go to the slicks, and that means the 20 car should be on pit road very shortly.
Very, very careful at the start. Be very careful.
Change to their
and zero the fuel, please.
just love John McLaughlin, the team manager's voice on the radio. So British, so calm. Be very careful. Set the fuel, watch the brakes, cold tires.
And look at, Bob, look at how slow he's going on this pit out, because this is really very dodgy time. You go out onto a semi-wet racetrack with cold, dry weather tires. This is, you know, the toughest 2 or 3 laps you'll ever drive in terms of bringing tires up to temperature.
John McLaughlin is not only calm, he is competent. He was named the outstanding technician in this category a year ago for the series. Let's get another pit update here.
Well, Carl Rosenblatt brought the 00 in unexpectedly, I think about a lap too early, and now they've made a change. They had Pirelli intermediates ready to go on, and now they've gone to the race slicks. So this is going to be a little bit longer stop than they had planned, but Rosenblatt will stay in the car. He's from England, of course. Manzo Caldereri, Lillian Briner from Switzerland, so we've got a real international flavor to this team. But as they mentioned to us before when we talked to Lillian, they are just planning on maintaining their pace, hoping that either the race comes back to them or that they can just sneak their way into a podium finish. Bill, you got Alan Mcnish?
Sure do. We just climbed out of the Ferrari. How was it out there under those wet conditions?
It was pretty slippery in the infield. The banking was okay, but the problem was coming onto the banking, where you were having to cross white lines. And that meant the car was a bit nervous, but it just was a case of trying to tread carefully, but we had to go as fast as we could to see if we could pull anything back on that car.
And the 20 car is the car he's talking about. They're coming down pit road, and we'll check on that stuff. But you did turn some very impressive laps.
Got no choice, we have to.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
And the 20 car, the Dyson Ford, now on pit road, and they obviously will make the tire change as well. So,
come in, reset the fuel.
7 car came in first.
Pumps to main. These are the tires.
And because the 7 car
these are
came
the
in
tires
first,
you had on before. They're just barely warm anymore.
set of tires that's been through a heat cycle is going to go on the car.
And that's...
Whoop, there's a look at the 00 car. Remember all those warnings about watch the cold tires on a cold racetrack and a wet one as well. That car just spun.
And the difference when you...
Duranigus is in the 7 car. They are on slicks, and he's having trouble getting it up to speed. Follow suit.
Oh, this hurts when he's behind that Camaro trying to get out of the pits.
Yeah, that does hurt. But I'll tell you what, he's going to want to take it very, very easy. But the difference, he's got scrub tires. In other words, these cars have already got like a full heat cycle on them. Much better than putting sticker tires on. If you put sticker tires on under these circumstances, as it looks like the Corvette is about to do right now, those look like stickers to me, they take even longer. That's going to take you another 2 or 3 laps.
And all that kitty litter laid down in the pit box there to soak up some of that oil will be on those tires when he goes back out. Looks like the hood's going to come off. We'll keep our eyes on it and be right back. Halfway through the 21st hour at the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And our story continues to take twists and turns as you watch the class-leading Corvette #2 coming back onto the racetrack in the hands of Ron Fellows, now on sticker tires, brand new slick tires. And in the pit crew conversations during our commercial break, they sound very concerned about their continuing heavy use of oil.
Yeah, the team asking Ron to actually watch his RPM, keep the RPM down, because maybe that'll help the oil problem. There you can see all the oil dry, the kitty litter they've thrown down there. And they said the oil is actually coming out the louvers in the hood. Marty, can you give us an update?
Yeah, guys, I mean, their last stop was 15 minutes ago. I mean, they definitely have a problem here, and your point was well taken. We're not seeing a lot of smoke like we normally do in these situations, so where is the oil going? They don't even have a good answer for that. The other thing was, Ron, right before he pulled out, he goes, tires. They go, you got stickers, slicks, and he looked like he wasn't too thrilled about that, and he tiptoed out of here. So keep an eye on him, because it is still greasy out there.
Well, we've had another spin on the racetrack. Car number 55, a Porsche 911 for a combined German, Swiss, and French team. There you see the Proton competition, 911 GT2, Gerald Reed, Gerald Rook, Tony Seiler, and Patrick Villaume. spun, and that was about a minute ago. He's having trouble getting that car relit.
Boy, he's not in a very good spot either. That's a big passing area coming out of that corner.
Heavy acceleration just before the kink on the infield.
Well, you can see the safety vehicles there, and this is probably not a situation, at least here the visibility is good. If the car has been there for a lap or two, everyone knows it's there. So it's not a big deal to go and put a rope on that car and just to pull it, you know, to a safe place without going to a full course yellow or anything like that. Of course, the team would like to get the car back.
Now another car slowing. There's the Kyler, the car number 60. We took a closer look earlier. Now he is down on the apron in the banking. Tim Moser, Chris Wilson, Barry Waddell, the Kyler Ford, and that, it appears, will bring out the yellow flags so that officials can go out and retrieve these two stopped cars. Another note on that number 2 Corvette while in the pits, it lost a position to our GT3 class leading Porsche, so the 3 class leads the 2 class. Back live at Daytona International Speedway at much reduced speed. The pits are closed. We are under caution. The safety car is on the infield awaiting the race leader, number 20 right there, Elliott Forbes Robinson. Now the story is about to get interesting. When the safety car picks up the leader, they'll have to get the field organized. They've still got one car to move that stopped on the racetrack on the infield section. And down at NASCAR 3 and 4, the sky is black, and we can see heavy rain coming out the bottom of the cloud. Look at that off toward the Atlantic Ocean and the Daytona Beach area along A1A. Heavy rain. Now keep in mind, a lot of our front-running cars have already recommitted to slick tires. So when the pits open, you can expect to see a bunch of cars come in. If anybody is taking the time to look at the radar, my guess is we are about to get a gully washer.
Now this is going to be really interesting because they told us in the drivers meeting that they were going to keep the pits closed until most of the cars got grouped up behind the pace car. Now if it rains and they're on slicks, the cars can't go fast enough. The pace cars probably be the fastest car on the track.
Well, the pace car has finally picked up the race leader. Let's get to Marty Reed.
Yeah, on the number 60, Barry Waddell called into the crew and he said, hey fellas, I can't get any fire on this thing. He's got electrics, but all of a sudden the motor shut off. He cannot get it to turn over again, so it looks like their day may be over.
He is on the hook. There he is, Barry Waddell, being towed in. He'll make the turn right there, so I guess whatever they've got, the driver believes to be terminal. They're not taking the time to tow him over to the pit lane.
Well, they must have told him, just take it to the garage. We'll meet you there, and we'll just check it out.
Well, I don't think they can get a pickup truck out of pit lane. Once it goes down there, it's got to go out the pit exit.
We'll take a break while the field begins to form up behind the Corvette safety car, and the rain is coming. Don't go away. Back live at Daytona, the pits are open and some of the cars are heading for the pit lane as the rain is now about 100 yards just outside the turns 3 and 4.
Very surprised that our leader did not pit, actually.
Absolutely.
Very, very surprising. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep our eyes open for the 7 car, because if the 7 car does come in, that might be a very good tactical move by that team.
Now a couple of cars took to the pit lane while the pits were closed. Officials ran up and did not allow the teams to work on those cars as the rules provide. So now the action picks up in the pit lane as the safety car leads the race leader, Elliott Forbes Robinson, around. And a number of cars are still trying to catch up with that pack behind the safety car.
And including the 7 car. So the 7 car stayed out. It did not pit. And let's go down to Bill Weber.
Well, the 20 stayed out because Max Crawford says they're content with what they've got on that car. He says, we just pitted, we've got slicks on. They appear to be very happy right now, so they, as of right now, do not plan to pit. So either they don't believe Bob's forecast or they're going to try and get it out here. We'll see what happens.
Well, I think the 23 car believed your forecast, so they're putting on range right now. You got to realize that from pit lane, they can't see turns 3 and 4 of NASCAR with all the tents there. So when we see this huge downpour that's just right across the street, they don't.
The car cars come in. There's the 00 Ferrari, Marty Reed.
Yeah, Carl Rosenblatt was one of those that came in early, so they just made him stop all work until the pits did open. So they have lost another lap, and he has got a full tank of fuel. They are on race slicks. Again, they too do not have any access to weather radar, but they are going to send him back out on the race slicks, and Rosenblatt stays in the car.
We're going to find out in just a moment.
Marty, don't go too far. He'll be back.
Yeah, I would guess so. That car currently 4th in the overall and in class, 20 laps behind the leader. Swiss flag there on the right front fender.
They're taking an awful long time here.
Obviously discussion going on the radio. Something's not working. Carl Rosenblatt from England behind the wheel.
There's no real sense of urgency there, is there? I mean, they're just kind of sitting.
Well, he's got 40 laps on the next car class. The number 8, Riley and Scott, the support net car. And running on the same lap with the number 8 car is our GT3 class leader, that 23 car we saw in the pits a little while ago. They're having a great run. Pressurizing something.
Well, that's probably either oil or water. It's probably either pressurized oil or water to go in, much like we've seen with the Corvette system.
And all the drag racing guys are saying, no, that's a nitrous bottle.
That's
what are you talking about?
That's what they call it, a turbocharger in a bottle. Well, it looks like they're finishing up their service work, but the rain appears to be coming once again. The skies are closing in on Daytona. Stay with us. Back at Daytona, where the skies have opened up again over the 37th running of the Rolex 24. Race leader Elliott Forbes Robinson heads back out. There's the 2nd place car in class, the number 7 Ferrari for Didier Duradiguez. And look at the rain pelting down.
And we have that 2nd place GT2 car, a Porsche, the 83 Rook car, in the pits, and it's really crowded.
Well,
down
look
there.
at this. Look at this.
Jam.
These guys got backed in because they've got cars on the front and back, so they've had to nose them in. But they obviously planned it. I mean, they said, okay, this is what we've got to do. There's the 19 car in the front. There's another Porsche parked behind these 2 cars, so they're going to have to pull them back out.
The 83 car looks like it's also lost its windows.
Well, they need a good valet down there in that pit. Marty Reed.
Well, the Corvette camp has taken off the assembly, and they are going for the valve covers now. They're going down inside, and the worst part about this is, remember, they were undecided whether or not to do this work. Now they're doing it in a driving rain, which this can't help anything. I mean, and one of the guys is saying, hey, we need some cover over here. We're going to drown this motor if we don't. So, guys, they have also switched the batteries out there in the process of doing that. The 83 car also in the pits, we hear. That's up at the other end. So, and that's the battle that is going on in GT2. That's Andre Arle's team that is in that team, in that car. And you can see here all the work that's trying to go on. And this is really going to be difficult. They're going to hold a jacket over these guys as they work down over this engine assembly area. So we'll keep you posted as things are progressing here in the Corvette camp.
Well, looking upwind, it's going to get worse before it gets better because the skies are black and the rain is pouring down here at Daytona. Just another twist in the epic that is always the 24-hour race here. Back live at Daytona, where the rain is now pouring down heavier than ever as we remain under caution here at the Rolex 24. Now the sky is lightening to the east, so the rain may let up sometime soon, but the safety car remains on the racetrack.
And that was a very, very smart thing to do. They had given the 1 lap to go, but that was before the heavy rain arrived. And there's just no reason to go green when it's raining this hard. This shower will pass, things will drain. There's the Corvette team. Now, as bad as that all looks, they would prefer to do this under yellow because they're not going to lose as many laps. The 83 car is on the same lap as the 2 car now, so the next time the 83 car comes around, the Corvette will lose the lead. And you can see a car there.
A spinner back on the backstretch.
Yeah, you can see a car there coming off. That's one of the Ferrari 355 GT3 cars.
You see how slippery it is. I mean,
oh yeah,
barely moving and not even slowing down.
That's a number 42 GT3 car for a team of Italians.
Is that the 83 car there?
No, that's 77, I think.
Whoa. That's one of the Can-Am cars. Meanwhile, work goes on in the pit lane. I know this team is happy to be doing this work under yellow, but they'd also like to be doing it under blue skies. On board the number 68 car.
That's what we were talking about earlier. You just can't see in some of these GT cars if they don't have defrosters. And you know the Dodge Viper, we have a special windshield. Oh, we have a little bit of a spin coming in the pit lane. The Dodge Viper actually has a heated windscreen because there's no way you can get dry air to the windshield to dry it out.
That same Ferrari, number 43, just tried to enter the pits and wound up spinning through the infield grass, but he's gotten back on the road.
Well, he's probably on slicks, hasn't put any wet weather tires on yet, so now he finally stopped in his pit. Look at these guys, not having a whole lot of fun, but you know, you got to do what you got to do.
And while they're sitting there in the pit lane, there has been a change in the class leadership as the number 83 Porsche has come by and taken the position and the lead in class. We've got another spinner down, going down into turn 1. It is puddling up very heavily around the racetrack. There's the 83 for Andre Arl, Hubert Haupt, David Warnock. Arl was a part of a team that had an interesting experience a couple of years ago. They were not able to get their imported car through customs. As you see the skies lightening up to the east, which means the rain is likely to let up slightly. In fact, it's doing so right now. Arla's team was parked outside the gates. They missed first round practice and qualifying for the race. They came in, qualified on the second day, and went on to win the class despite having missed a day of acclimatization here at Daytona. Now look at the puddling on the racetrack. Daytona drains well, but even the best conditions cannot handle too much water, and too much water is what we've got right now. We'll be back.
Now
back at a soaking wet Daytona International Speedway, where we remain under caution, although the skies are lightening up and the rain is lightening up with it. After a heavy rainfall, grew some puddles around this racetrack, and we've had a bunch of cars splashing around, pointed in the wrong direction. Let's take a look at the distance covered thus far by our class leaders. 2,192 miles in the Can-Am class. The race record for distance covered in that class, 2,531 miles. Back just last year when Gianpiero Moretti achieved his dream of winning this race. The GT2 record, 2,367 miles 2 years ago. The GT3 record, 2,338 miles. GTT is a new class, so that will automatically become a record eventually. Just as fast as it came, the rain, it appears, has gone. Now, that doesn't mean these cars will get off the wet tires right away, because they've still got a lot of standing water to deal with on the racetrack.
And this is where your tire manufacturers can really help you, because standing water is very important in terms of, and there's a good look at a rain tire. Standing water is your real enemy in wet weather. Now, this is a slick that is being heated and having the pickup or the buildup on the tire taken off it. And so the Dunlop guys do this. They heat it up, they rotate it around very slowly, and that almost becomes like a brand new slick, but that's really nice sticky rubber under there. So once it dries out, that's an ideal tire to put back on. But right now, you need something that can channel water. Not so much up on the bank, but mainly in the infield, in the transitions. The worst spot here is as you come out of turn 5 onto NASCAR 1. That is the worst spot on this racetrack in the wet.
It's off camber, it's slippery even when it's dry, and it just collects a lot of water.
Yeah, it collects an awful lot of water.
And also pit out. You notice cars going down pit out, there's huge puddles going down there. They look like boats going through it.
The field is headed for that part of the racetrack you were just talking about. They'll make a left turn as you look at number 20, Elliott Forbes Robinson.
Now here's 20, there's EFR. Let's look at this interval now. There is the 7 car. Now still 2 laps back, but you know, if they can, and this is the turn 5 area where the really nasty standing water can be. But that car not that far away from getting another lap back. And I would expect Alan Mcnish, or I don't think Mcnish got out of the car. That's Duradigas in the car.
Duradigas, yes.
I would expect that Duradigas is going to be getting after it pretty hard.
You can see the water that's collected on the under tray pouring out when it turns up the banking.
And that means if they turn them loose anytime soon, when they do get back on the hammer, you're going to see rooster tails of spray everywhere that's going to cut everybody's vision dramatically. And you see how that car sticks way up there on the banking with the help of those treaded rain tires. We'll be back. Green flag coming soon at the Rolex 24. Welcome back on this Super Bowl Sunday. You're watching the Super Bowl of sports car racing, the Rolex 24. Coming up later today, college hoops action on ABC Sports. Regional action from around the country. In the ACC, you'll see North Carolina against Georgia Tech. Or from the Pac-10, UCLA faces Washington. Or some of you will see UMass versus Texas. Check your local listings for the game in your area. College basketball live, 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific on ABC Sports. Now back here at Daytona, this is actually probably a pretty good sign for the teams still in the running of the Rolex 24. The wind has picked up, and that will help dry the racetrack as long as we don't get another cloudburst. Let's get down and talk with the man who owns the race-leading car. Here's Bill Weber.
Well, you are the leader. 3 hours and 5 minutes of nail-biting racing remaining. Your thoughts at this time, Rob Dyson?
Well, we've been here before, haven't we? And we had about 2 laps on those guys. 3 hours of racing is a long time, especially at this place with the weather being the way it is. A lot of immense amount of variables when you throw the weather in as well. Last time we didn't have the weather problem. It was pretty clear and actually warm. Now we're getting high winds, a lot of rain, and that affects everybody. Of course, fortunately, it rains on everybody as well. But I'm cautiously optimistic, but we've also been here before and we've come up short. So I'm hoping that it falls our way, but we'll see in about 3 hours.
It has begun to pour again now, as you can see. Obviously, you guys keep on top of that so you know what to do as far as your tire situation is concerned.
Yeah, we're real lucky. The Goodyear guys are very cooperative with us. I mean, we've had a long relationship with them, and they've done a super job for us. But the other thing is that our guys are, you know, we got good drivers in the car, so we'll make sure that they get what they want. And if they want the biggest rains, or if they want the rain to stop, we'll do an Indian dance if we can do it.
Rob, you won here 2 years ago. What would it mean to you to repeat?
Well, I think we got a long way to go yet. Let's see when it happens, and then we'll talk to you.
Okay, how was your massage?
My massage was pretty good. I got a little flu, so I drove a little bit during the night, but not as much as I wanted. I'll get in later on when the rain stops.
Okay, in the meantime, we're staying undercover down here.
As well you should, because the skies have opened once again. You saw that shot of the puddles in some of the corners. Actually, the situation is pretty good up here on the banking as it runs down. Gravity is our friend. Here's a look at the overall. Elliott Forbes Robinson in the car owned by the man you just heard from, Rob Dyson, out front, leading their arch rivals from Ferrari. But there are 3 Ferraris within 20 laps of that race-leading Ford. And he doesn't get any help until you go all the way back to 6th place. Eliseo Salazar from Chile running behind the GT3 class leader. See a mix of GT3, GT2 classes. We've seen the GT2 class lead change as the Chevy Corvette remains on pit road, while the 83 Porsche has gone by to take that position, as well as 7th place in the overall, and now has a 2-lap lead over the Corvette in GT2.
A couple of things that are going to happen at this restart. Obviously, the track is not going to be dry, but these cars use the air as downforce, basically by pushing the air up over the car. And that's why you get these huge rooster tails of really fine mist, and it's going to make the visibility horrible for the cars in the back. Not only that, the GT cars, we mentioned before the fogging problems they have. Well, that gets a lot worse when you're going slow and no air circulation around the car. So these guys probably are having a tough time to see right now. Then with all that spray at the restart and cars trying to overtake, they're going to have their hands full.
Our field of 78 from yesterday afternoon when the race began has been cut pretty much in half, and that's not unusual at the Rolex 24. Attrition is always a factor. Our 2-time defending champions in GT3 are out of the running for that title this year. Always a new story at Daytona. We'll be back live in a moment. Several things about to happen at once here at Daytona International Speedway as we begin hour number 22 of the 37th Rolex 24 at Daytona. A new hour. The green flag is about to send our field on its way once again, and it looks like the rain is about to come down again. You can see the rooster tails they're creating while going around at pace lap speeds here at Daytona. Imagine what it's going to be like when they get the hammer back down. Right now, they're going 50, 60 miles an hour. It looks slow, but they're already tossing that water in the air. In a moment, they're going to go back to racing speeds, and you're really going to see the vision close down.
Well, it actually, you know, we're going to have to really be careful here because we have a lot of cars on the racetrack grouped very closely together, all on cold tires with a lot of standing water on the racetrack. You know, very late in the race, everyone is very fatigued, so it has the potential here to get kind of silly because, you know, mistakes will be made, and a lot of people are jockeying for position here and wanting, you know, especially the 7 car. Is going to want to try and get that lap back on the 20 car, and they are right down in the middle of that whole pack. So going to be very interesting here when we do go green.
Well, as we said earlier, they gave the 1 lap to go well, not last time, but a few laps ago, they gave the command 1 lap to go, but then they rescinded it and put the yellow back out when the rain picked up. Now the rain is starting to pour heavier again. We'll see whether they, in fact, turn the field loose. And once again, the race leader is not the car behind the safety car. There is Elliott Forbes Robinson. And a couple of cars back, there is the number 7 Ferrari. Second place in the race, but 2 laps down to the race leader.
This could get really hairy because if they don't throw the green, the cars in the back are using their crew to tell them when the green goes. And they're trying to anticipate it. They can't see, even in a clear day, the green flag. So now with all this mist, you know, they may misanticipate it, and that may cause a problem out in the back of the field.
Look at the water on pit lane. Now the green flag is in the flagman's hand. Now there is the Chevy Corvette that was the leader in the GT2 class when the yellow came out, but he's been in the pits for a long time. They have lost that class lead. The safety car is off, and the green flag waves. We're going back to racing here at Daytona in a downpour.
And keep your eyes on the 7 car because the 7 car is going to be making a big move. And EFR really held up by that first group of cars. There's only 3 cars in front of them, but now the 7 car clearly in touch with EFR.
Elliott Forbes Robinson slots into 3rd. Didier de Rodriguez goes down the inside. He is stuck in the 5th spot behind a slower GT car. There's the number 20 in red, white, and blue. There is the Ferrari in red, white, and green.
And keep in mind, when it's raining like this, you're so focused on what's going on in front of you, and your mirrors are probably either wet or fogged up. Much tougher to see the cars coming up behind you, especially in the open cockpit cars.
Boy, so far I'm pretty surprised it's been as clean as it has been out on that restart. And also note that when the guys go down on the inside of the pass, the inside of the course where the cars always run is usually the most slippery. So the guy that's getting past has more grip than the guy that's doing the passing.
Which makes it that much more difficult. As you see de Rodriguez go around the yellow Ferrari.
You'll see in the next couple laps the lines really begin to change because they're trying to find grip on the racetrack.
EFR has gotten around the number 8, Riley and Scott. There's the Rodriguez in the 2nd place car.
Now this is the area where the standing water can be really bad. Look at that. Little opposite lock there, especially as you make that transition back up on the banking. Now, the banking...
Well, he's getting wheel spin up there, it looks like.
Well, because he doesn't really have any tire temperature. And this run around the banking will now give him some tire temperature, and the car will start to settle down.
Yeah, it gets a little hairy coming out of that corner because you're almost anticipating getting to the banking where you're hoping there won't be any more standing water and get some traction.
Let's see what happens under braking from the top speed on the backstretch into this very slow chicane.
It's really dirty in there, too, offline from all the cars throwing up mud and dirt.
And look at this, the 36 Ferrari rolling up behind de Rodriguez. So de Rodriguez not seemingly very comfortable with the wet weather.
That will at least get the lap back between those 2 cars. If the 36 can get around Elliott Forbes Robinson on the lead.
And that looks like
take a lap back.
And that looks like the 16 car coming up behind de Rodriguez there.
Looking healthy again.
Has de Rodriguez been here before?
Not really. Certainly not at this level in the big Can-Am cars.
Because banking is very confusing to the driver the first time he sees it. And let alone seeing it in the rain.
Well, and I think, you know, to get comfortable, you know, I've driven here in the wet quite a bit, and to get comfortable on the banking in a really fast car takes some time, you know, to really come to grips with the fact that you can run flat out around that banking. You know, you really have to get your comfort level up and have a lot of confidence.
Sure, it feels pretty ugly sometimes with a car on the bump stacks. Yeah, he's running a pretty normal line right on the inside, and he's probably not getting much feedback from the car. He probably just wants to slide all around there.
While the battle continues on the racetrack, one of our big stories is still in the pits. Marty Reed can report.
Yeah, we're down here with Chris Neifel, and the good news was the Corvette led for like over 12 hours. The bad news is right now you're 5 laps down and counting. Do they know what the problem is?
Yeah, it appears maybe there was a oil fitting or something that sprung a leak, but looks like the boys got it all fixed up, and we'll get the number 2 Corvette back out there. And, you know, if we can get lucky and stay healthy now the next 3 hours, maybe we can bring the battle back to the Porsches. But I think we got a long road ahead of us, but we're going to give it our best effort.
And guys, it's starting to pour again down here. We're going to let Chris get dry.
All right, thanks, guys. Meanwhile, Didier Rodriguez continues his struggle with that Ferrari in second place. 2 laps down to the race leader, and you saw like Stu Hayner going by in the number 16 Dyson machine that had oil problem of its own earlier on. That car currently shown in 17th place overall. Check that, Dorsey Schrader now behind the wheel of the number 16 Riley and Scott for Dyson Racing.
Yeah, he does in the 7 car. It's really driving timidly if you watch it carefully.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have a lot of confidence in that car, and I wouldn't be surprised that the team is now discussing that. I mean, clearly they'll be watching the lap times. You know, they needed that opportunity to get that lap back, and they're probably going to want to get maybe Mcnish back in the car or Angelelli or someone else. And here's a pretty clear explanation of what's going on here. EFR at 98 mile an hour average, Rodriguez at an 87 mile an hour average on that last lap.
Still a lot of water building up. Huge rooster tails on the straightaways coming in and out of the tri-oval portion of the racetrack.
Now, I can't imagine that they put anything but full wets on this car, but they may have put intermediates. They may have put intermediate reins on it. And, maybe that is his problem. Updating the graphic. You see the gap continues between the class leader and the last lap turned in by Didier Rodriguez.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he was on intermediates given the downpour and the yellow flag laps. They had plenty of time to go to range.
Yeah, I would be very surprised, but you never know. And, based on the lap times, I mean, we saw Dorsey come by him, and we saw EFR drive away. We saw the Matthews car go by.
Curly Haywood, a 5-time winner of this race at the wheel of the car that he shares with Danny Sullivan in the Whittington Brothers. Go ahead.
Well, having said that, this car is not a particularly easy car to drive. The Ferrari, kind of known more for top end, high speed, less downforce than this car. Here's EFR in the Riley and Scott. And if there's one thing that you want in wet weather, it's downforce.
Downforce is king in wet weather, for sure.
And so, that would make the comfort level on this car much higher. And you can still see tremendous amount of water getting kicked up by, the combination of aerodynamics and the tires from that Riley and Scott.
And again, you'd probably see more from the Riley and Scott because there's so much more downforce.
Well, with all of the rain and the problems suffered by the 2-time defending champs from Prototype Technology Group, their BMW M3s are out of the race. We won't get to see the Rainmeister himself, Hans Stuck, in action. What is now a very wet Daytona International Speedway. We'll be back. Back live at Daytona International Speedway as the Rolex 24 continues. The rain has stopped once again, but the track is very wet, as you can tell from the rooster tail behind race leader Elliott Forbes Robinson. Has driven a very steady race in vastly changing conditions since he got in that car. You've probably heard about it. It's coming your way on ESPN. It's called Sports Century, the top 50 athletes, Friday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, counting down the top 50 athletes of the past century. Check it out to see who is number 48 of the century and the views of our judging panel. 10:30 p.m. Eastern, Friday on ESPN. For more, log on to ESPN.com, part of Go Network, go.com. Windshield wipers working on the inside and the outside. This is the number 2 factory Corvette after a long pit stop. They are back on track but they have dropped to second in the class, 10th in the overall, 7 laps down behind the class leader. They've gone from 5th to 10th in the overall with that long stop.
Well, at least they're up and running. You know, it's certainly not over yet for this team, and they've done a fantastic job. And they'll get in that car and they'll pedal it hard. And we'll see what can happen. The good news is that they're not having any fogging problems. The bad news is that whole thing probably gives you a splitting headache watching those two wipers go back and forth like that.
We'd like to thank David Donohue from the Dodge Viper team for spending some time with us. Good luck to that team in the 24 Hours of Le Mans this year. Their races run here at Daytona. Oh, we have a car stopped on the track. Now, that's one of the two Porsches. Is that the 83 car?
Is that the Rook car?
It's one of the Rook cars, I would almost bet.
We can't see and it's
left rear is off.
It's the 82.
Okay, the 83 car, the sister car to this one, is the class leader. But the left rear is definitely deranged.
Well, he's now pointed in the right direction anyway, because that is the infield, and he's not far from the garages, so you can get on the radio.
That's the same place the number 10 BMW went off yesterday when you pointed out that he made a mistake of pulling to the outside of the track instead of the inside right there.
If you ever go off on the infield of Daytona, you always pull off to the left. Here's Ron
Down the
Fellows.
track, but run pretty hard.
A little wiggle there in turn 1.
You know, easier said than done. Stay on the track and run pretty hard. In these kinds of conditions, Ron has tremendous experience in production-based cars and is the right man to have in this car at this moment, without question. Has a little glance in the mirror there.
Driving position is interesting in this car. The wheel not quite as close to the chest as, say, a NASCAR Winston Cup car, nor as far away as we often see in open-wheel cars.
Well, it's one of those things, you know, a lot of it is the compromise in terms of where you put the driver. I mean, you want to get the driver properly positioned low down in the car, further back to get more weight on the rear wheels. You see him looking in the mirror there as one of the Dyson cars comes up. And Ron, of course, passing another car as he heads out to NASCAR Turn 1 up onto the banking. But sometimes...
Ron, you got to turn the main lights on. Copy, Ron.
On go the headlights. So the guys in the pit lane telling him to turn on the main headlights. He had the little cornering lights on. He turned on the main headlights.
Ron is a part of the tall team, sharing with Chris Neifel, who is 6'6". John Paul Jr. goes about 6'4". Ron is about 6'2".
And I think they probably wanted him to turn on the main lights just so the slower cars had a better shot at seeing him coming. That is the reason they put on the headlights. Why he's in the tall car is really just a packaging issue. You know, they had 6 drivers, you know, 3 of them kind of under 5'8", and 3 of them over 5'11", or yeah. And you know, fewer seat changes, just easier packaging in terms of drivers. I mean, to put you know, to put Chris Neifel in a car with
11A.
This is a privateer Porsche, Corvette, that is. Car number 44 running in the GT3 class. And if he gets past our camera position, you'll see that this car is showing some scars. Look at the rear of this thing.
Yeah, this thing's in rough shape. Completely lost the rear hatch. Fully ventilated in the rear. But getting back to what I was saying, if you were to put Chris Neifel in a car with a guy like Alan McNish, you have some real packaging problems. Here's a replay of this Corvette. This is back in the chicane, the bus stop chicane. And just gets it sideways at the first apex. Gets it locked up pretty quickly, which is good. And then gets back to power once it's pointed in the right direction.
That is probably very close to a box stock Corvette out there running in the GT3 class. Marty Reed.
We're down here with David Murray in the 02, second place in GT3. They have had a bit of a glitch, an electrical problem. They are changing fuses. They've also gone into the black box. But as of right now, the car has refired. And they're making some final adjustments, looking over the rear end. We'll find out if that is the finishing touches and if they'll be back out on the course. Second place right now in GT3.
And the engine is turned off. Let's take a look at the GT3 leaderboard. Our race leader is the number 23 car, Kelly Collins, behind the wheel. David Murray runs second in the 02 as we go on board with the race leader, and you see a good idea of what it's like for the driver inside the car, traveling on this high bank at 160 miles an hour or so, I would guess.
Yeah, these guys run about 155 in the GT3 cars. They do get slowed down a little bit through the trial because their shot out of the chicane isn't quite as good. They can't roll as much speed through the chicane, so once they get back through the trial, well, they're not running with quite as much top speed, probably about 150, 155 miles an hour. But in the wet through the trial, well, that is pretty quick.
The third-place car in class being driven by Patrick Heisman from the Netherlands, along with Darren Law from Arizona, Danny and Steve Marshall, brothers from Virginia, and Sylvain Tremblay from Pompano Beach, Florida. They are raising money and awareness for the Jennifer Fund to battle blood diseases and cancers in children. They took on that cause after Steve's daughter, Jennifer, was diagnosed with leukemia, raising money for the University of Virginia Children's Hospital. Good luck to them this weekend. Jennifer, if you're watching, your car is in third place. Our race leader, number 20, going through that very wet, very tricky section. We've seen cars spinning in there in the dry. The 68 comes down very professionally to let the race leader come by. He's watching his mirrors. Porsches everywhere on the racetrack. They just keep turning up. We can talk about the Vipers and the Vets and all the other cars that come out to challenge in the production-based GT category, but somehow it always seems to come back to a Porsche 911.
And that last lap at 103.0, actually a little bit slower. It looks like Duradigas has actually gotten up to speed.
Whoa, there's the 68.
One of those 911s off the road. It looks like Duradigas has gotten up to speed. His last lap, 103 miles an hour, 0.1. So that margin now not changing a whole lot. But certainly it's taken Duradigas some time to get up to speed, and EFR's been doing a great job. I've been watching his lap times here, and he's been very consistent. He's consistently been about the quickest, but now you can see the two of them virtually the same on lap time. But unfortunately, they've lost that opportunity to get that lap back that they needed to get back. They're 2 laps down, so they could have been 1 lap down if Duradigas had been able to capitalize on the track position there.
On what looks like a dry racetrack, you can see those treaded tires continue to suck up that water and spray it in the air. Vastly experienced Elliott Forbes Robinson, who has driven about every kind of race car you could manage to mention. Right now, he leads, and we'll be back to Daytona. Skies continue to brighten over Daytona International Speedway. Maybe we'll have a sunny victory lane in about 2 hours and 40 minutes. But that is still a long way away for the survivors of the 37th Rolex 24 on Bob Varsha, along with Jeremy Dale, Marty Reed, and Bill Weber. As our race ticks along, Elliott Forbes Robinson has handled this car in the lead from the dry to the wet to the very wet. Now back into the gradually drying once again.
And this is a stint I think Elliott can really be proud of. He's done an exceptional job. He's been the quickest car on the racetrack. You know, he's kept it between the lines. You see him there as he exits that corner, not going out over that painted line, which often in the dry you see drivers go out over that painted section of curbing. If you get on that, you're probably going to be backwards in an instant. But this is a great stint for Elliott.
From Sherrills Ford, North Carolina, the Charlotte area. How long has Elliott been doing this? He'll hate me for saying this. His first major win came in an SCCA Trans Am under 2-liter event at Sears Point in Sonoma, California in 1969.
Well, I used to watch him race when I was a kid.
And that was a long time ago.
That was a long time. Yeah.
That was in high school in 1969. He has driven Winston Cup stock cars around this place. There's the second place car, the number 7 Olive Garden Ferrari 333 SP. Didier Duradigas behind the wheel. He has struggled some in the wet. Marty Reed.
Well, guys, the reason he probably has struggled is he was on the intermediate tires. Jeremy, you mentioned that during one of the conversations, and they gave up a lot in the early part of that downpour. But now, as the track has begun to dry out, those intermediates will last a lot longer. than the heavy-duty rain tires at Elliott Ford Robinson. So a roll of the dice. They think maybe this will pan out for him in the long run. Let's go down to Bill Weber.
Well, Marty, Max Crawford has intermediate tires that he could put on the 20 car, but he told me he just doesn't like to use them. He doesn't feel he's committed one way or the other when he has those on. Plus, here at Daytona, he's concerned about how fast the banking will dry, and he wants to make sure he's on the right tire when it is wet and then the right tire when it's dry. So they've opted to stay away from the intermediates.
Max Crawford talking on the radio with his man, Elliott Ford Robinson. 11 top 10 finishes in this race. There's Max. Now he turns to talk to the crew. Folks on the timing desk. Make sure everybody knows exactly what their job is when they go over the wall for service. A little twitch there in the high-speed infield kink. Fords and Ferraris dominating the top 5. That battle goes back to the 60s when Henry Ford II decided we want to beat the Ferraris, and one of the biggest car builders in the world put all of its resources into trying to beat one of the smallest but certainly the best known, and eventually they got it done. Of course, in '61, Dan Gurney and A.J. Foyt drove a Ford GT40 to victory in the best known endurance race in the world.
Well, that was after they tried to buy Ferrari and were turned away. I mean, there were some serious negotiations for Ford to buy Ferrari. They were really ahead of their time with the car mergers back then, and they got turned away. And Fiat ended up controlling Ferrari and giving them the injection of capital that they needed over the years, which is why they've been able to maintain their Formula One efforts and so on. So Ford decided to go out and build some race cars.
Imagine how the history of motor racing might have changed if Henry Ford had managed to buy Ferrari. Going up the banking, everybody driving very professionally here, staying out of one another's way. Here comes the number 7, second place Ferrari, working the infield. Lots of traffic.
And he's been just behind EFR in terms of lap time, so he is not gaining on them. And if they're hoping that these intermediate tires, which cost them so much time early on in this stint, if they're hoping these intermediates are going to pay off, you know, it better start showing up soon, because right now it's not working for them. There you see it, 6 seconds slower on that last lap.
Running 67-second laps, while the class leader running 2 minutes, 7 seconds. Well, that was what I was talking about, staying out of each other's way. That's the 68 that's been on and off there in the chicane.
That is a very dodgy place to pass. It's also very tempting, but it is often very dodgy there. You get a run, but boy, that gap closes down in a hurry.
The wind has picked up here at Daytona as well, and that is affecting these cars as well. Rippling the flags on the infield. We'll take a break and return for more of the Rolex 24. Don't go away. Coming up on 2.5 hours to go in the great race. The sands of time ticking away. We are halfway through hour 22 at the Rolex 24. The race continues with Elliott Ford Robinson in the lead, and the crews along the pit lane preparing for the next round of pit stops. Will they dare to get off the wet tires? Do they have intermediate treaded tires? Or will they go to slicks as the rain appears to have stopped? Although the wind is gusting to about 22 miles per hour. How is the wind going to affect these cars, Jeremy?
Well, it really varies, because what can happen is as you go around the banking, especially if you're high up, you can actually be shielded by the wind, but then you might pop out, and all of a sudden there's a big gust of wind. So it can be very inconsistent.
Good news is the food court and the amusement park are open on the midway here at Daytona. Wouldn't want to be on the Ferris wheel in this. Now is when people start to look at the clock and listen to the engine note, waiting for those gremlins that might crop up and foil their shot at victory. Let's pick up the story with Bill Weber.
Well, they're listening to the engine, and that's exactly what EFR is doing, because apparently he cannot hear the crew. They believe it's a water-related problem, so that's why the Dyson crew has gotten on the wall down here on pit road. They're not expected to pit for quite a while. But since they don't have total radio communication, Max Crawford says we're going to be ready. We could come down pit road at any time. We just want to be prepared. So far, no use of any signal board or anything, but they do have a radio communication problem. Apparently, he cannot hear them. Marty?
Let's give you an update on the Team Seattle Racing for Children. Right now, the 22 and 23 car, Alex Job Racing, $221,000. Don Kitch, you got to be real happy.
Yeah, we're real satisfied with this year. This is our third year down here for Team Seattle with Alex Job Racing, representing probably the finest children's hospital in the nation. They provide over $30 million in free care to children. They call it the Miracle House. There's never a child turned away. So last year, $200,000. We're hoping to be at $250,000 by the end of the race, and we're going to win it also in GT3.
GT3, you realize you're leading all the GT classes?
I'm sorry, come back.
Do you realize you're leading all the GT classes, 2 and T?
Well, it just keeps getting better, doesn't it? We came down here to make a bunch of money for the kids and run 1-2. Well, the 1-2 kind of went away for me at 1:30 in the morning, but our 23 cars still leading, so we're happy campers.
And they're looking towards that victory in just a couple of hours.
About $500,000 raised for the Seattle Children's Hospital and Regional Medical Center by Team Seattle. Headlights flashing, headed down toward the tri-oval. Now, I said the winds were gusting at 22 miles an hour. I was correct that it's 22 knots. All you nautical types out there know that that's an even stronger wind, and you can see it moving our high camera lens around up there, making it very tough on the cameramen, who, by the way, are standing out there in the rain with the teams, and they don't have all those tents along the pit lane to take refuge in.
No, that's a brave job up there on top of the tower. They're a couple of floors above where we are, and it's very windy up there.
Traffic on the infield. There's the 23 car leading all of the GT categories, 2, 3, and GTT, as Marty mentioned. Congratulations to Team Seattle on a great fundraising effort this weekend. Now they'll try to bring it home.
Well, they've got about 8 laps on the 02 car. So what they hope for is just no serious mechanical problems and just keep the car out of trouble. They certainly don't have to drive very hard, so they can go easy on the equipment. They just need to hope that they have no serious mechanical problems.
We consider them perhaps inferior to the Can-Am cars in the pecking order here at the racetrack, but GT3 cars have finished as high as 3rd overall in this race, so they do have their role to play in the overall battle. Right now, they run 6th in the overall for Team Seattle number 23 for Alex Job Racing. 7th place car is the leader in the GT2 category. And once again, the pit crews are getting ready for the next round of stops here at Daytona. We'll be back. Live from Daytona International Speedway as Speed Weeks 1999 opens with the 37th running of the Rolex 24. Glad to have you with us here with less than 2.5 hours remaining for that man, Elliott Forbes Robinson, his teammates, and the rest of the Dyson Racing operation as they try to take that Ford to victory. There's the 2nd place Ferrari for Doyle Reese Racing in the hands of Didier de Radiguez. Up high on the banking. We understand the next driver in the car will be Alan Mcnish. Now that's out of sequence for them. Mcnish usually the guy that precedes de Radiguez in the car. So I guess they want to get McNish's rain skills. Here comes the car.
And look at this, a lot of standing water down here. You have to be very, very careful making that transition off the banking down into pit lane.
He's got his seat bolster to get him in the car, Alan Mcnish. You saw he had a pad on his right leg too. Probably braces it up against, there it is, that black pad, braces it up against the right side. That's his throttle foot.
Well, that's when you're going around the banking. I just want to look at I want to see what they put on for tires here. It looks like the same set. Let's go down to Marty Reed.
Well, guys, you're right, Jeremy. The strategy did not pay off, and Didier de Radiguez will not come away with a reputation, and similar to a couple years ago when Max Pappas was flying around. The intermediate tires with him at the wheel just did not do the job, but they are apparently going to put Mcnish back in because of his skill and the willingness of him to push the car. They are ready to go.
Acknowledge. Speak to me.
Very quick stop.
And was a good one.
Now, Marty, I'm wondering, it looked like they put the same type of tires back on.
They did.
They did put intermediates back on.
They did.
That actually surprises me, and we're going to watch him very carefully leaving pit lane here, because once you've got heat in those tires, if they're not worn out, there's really no reason to change them. So that is very peculiar, because now it'll take him at least 3 laps to get some decent temperature in those tires. So we're going to have to watch him very closely here in these opening laps on these cold rain tires.
Lots of traffic once again at the International Horseshoe. He's now 3 laps behind the race leading Ford. As he works the infield in very treacherous conditions now. Standing water everywhere, a strong wind blowing, potential for more rain.
Look at that.
Alan, the rear bar is on full stop. And did you zero the fuel meter?
Behind the wheel.
You can see he's got his visor cracked just a little bit there so that he can get some ventilation. And he came into that corner, he came into that hairpin, he had too much speed, and the car was just understeering, and he was very, very wide at the apex. And clearly no heat in the tires. That will definitely take 2 or 3 laps on these wet weather tires. So once he gets settled in, and we know the 20 car is due for a stop soon, but we will watch Alan Mcnish's progress in terms of lap time. And there's a little opposite lock there in the middle part of the chicane. And we'll watch his progress in terms of lap time, and we expect him to go much quicker than DeRadiguez. We'll just have to see if the intermediate tires are the proper choice. Certainly they were not for DeRadiguez.
Meanwhile, the number 20, Elliott Forbes Robinson, the race leader, just crossed the start-finish line. He's due for a pit stop soon. And remember, we're not sure whether he can hear his crew chief on the radio. So they'll be frantically signaling him if, in fact, he's due in.
Well, if this team, and I'm sure they have, there would be a default system in terms of fuel, which is, as the car gets down, you have a primary pump. Once it has about a gallon or maybe 2 gallons left in the tank, it will start to misfire. At that point, you can put on a reserve pump, which will access that last gallon or 2 of fuel. That will get him back to pit lane, so that even if they're not calling him, even if he can't hear him, he will go to pit lane and he will show up.
How long will the engine immediately refire when he hits the reserve?
It'll just start to misfire a little bit in a corner or on the banking or whatever. He'll know, and then that fuel pressure may be coupled to a light, so he may get a fuel pressure light, and he'll know at that moment to put on a reserve pump.
Bill Weber with more.
Well, Max Crawford continues to talk to Elliott Forbes Robinson, but there is no response from him, so they are using a signal board on the back portion of this racetrack to try and get him some information. They're not concerned. They feel at this speed they're not using nearly as much fuel as they were either. So they had planned to make this a long run, but they are prepared here on pit wall. Andy Wallace is ready to go. The crew has had the tires on the tire changing equipment on the wall for quite a while now, but Max continues to talk to him, but there is no response, and they are using a signaling board. The only question is, does a driver ever see that board?
Oh, you raise a good point there. With the cars going at a reduced pace, that'll change all the fuel calculations as Andy Wallace and Max Crawford right there finish their consultation. So I bet they're crunching those numbers down there in the pit lane to see how far they can go.
Yeah, you can't be nearly as aggressive with the throttle in the wet. You can't be on full throttle nearly as much. So as you say, Bob, you don't use as much fuel, and probably you do some short shifting as well. Now the signal board, if we follow EFR around here, we've come off the banking now. The signal board is in the infield portion of the racetrack. It's driver's left after you exit this next hairpin here. This is the International Horseshoe. And so on his left, as he drives down this straightaway, actually closer to the kink than I would like, is where the signal pits are. It's not exactly in the line of sight for the driver, so if you're not used to looking at it, he might not be looking at it.
And you're kind of busy trying to thread that needle at high speed in the kink, too.
Absolutely.
Now keep in mind this next round of pit stops as we get closer and closer to the 23rd hour. Drivers will be getting in who might carry the car all the way to the checkered flag. So it'll be interesting to see who starts getting in the car as these last few rounds of pit stops unfold.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mcnish at this point in until the finish. But I would expect that they would put Butch Lightiner back in this car.
There is car 02, running faster than the class leader, although they are 7 laps behind the class leading number 23 car, running 8th in the overall, and on the same lap with the 3rd place car in class, the 07, also a Porsche 911. They are currently shown running less than 20 seconds apart. So this could be an interesting battle for a podium spot.
And both cars in the top 10 overall, which is a great performance.
Absolutely. Checking the lap times versus class leaders once again. As you can see, moving much quicker than the class leaders.
Well, these guys are really having to hustle because they've got a car 20 seconds behind them that is trying to take that position away. So these guys are really having to hustle. And here's EFR on pit lane.
Ready for you here.
They will put Andy Wallace in. Very good rain driver. Let's go to Bill.
Well, under brutal conditions, the rain continues to pelt down, the wind gusting at a high mile-per-hour ratio. They do make the driver change. They will go to the full rain tires, so they take off the rain tires they had on, go to another set of groove tires, again, similar to what you would have on your passenger car. EFR will strap in Andy Wallace, and then he will continue the venture. Now, they do not have radio contact, as we've been talking about, and the only way they knew that the 20 car was coming down pit road is that Max was standing out there watching for him. They remind Andy to reset the fuel.
Set fuel. Check. Radio check.
And they did not get the radio check in, and that could be because he couldn't hear him asking for it.
Do you have a radio, Andy? Do you have a radio?
Ominous silence from Andy Wallace. So he goes off with good tires, a full tank of fuel, but apparently not an operating radio in the critical final hours of this race. But Andy Wallace is a veteran and a very successful driver. Ooh, locking up the right front on those cold tires at low speed.
Oh yeah, not hard to do at all. There's just no grip in this car right now. Don't go out on that paint, Andy. Stay off that.
Dorsey Schrader told us that on cold tires, on a dry track, you can spin this car while you're idling.
Well, look at the car that is pulling up beside him. It's the 19 car, GT2 car. And here comes the cop rolling up behind them. So that gives you an indication of how slow Andy has to go on these opening laps.
That's right. That Ford Mustang, 3rd in line right now. Number 19 is the leader in the GTT category. They are running 29th in the overall, 147 laps behind the race leader. A good job for that group. Credit to Les Delano, Kyle McIntyre, Andy Petery, and Gary Stewart, all from the Northeast. Les Delano and Andy Petery have been driving together for a long time. This is their 15th Rolex 24 driving as teammates, and it looks like they are in the catbird seat to pick up a victory in the new GTT category. Now let's talk with the man who just got out of the race leading car. Once again, here's Bill Weber.
With Elliott Forbes Robinson, what was that like out there?
Well, when it first went green, there was some giant puddles out there, and you had to really be careful in them. I got sideways a couple times, and also our throttle is sticking. So if you get on the throttle a little bit, it stays on. You have to stick the clutch in to stop the slide, so it gets a little busy. But the car was working so well, and the brakes were working so well in the rain, it makes me look good.
But the radio was not working.
No, sir. I could. For a while, I could hear them, and then it went away completely. I think it's because we were underwater a little bit.
How did you know when to come in?
I ran out of gas.
You did run out?
Yeah, I went out and had to go on reserve. And I figured that they knew about when that was, so they'd be ready.
Okay, well, they saw you coming, so they were ready.
And they were, and they're a good crew.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Well, you called it, Jeremy. When you hear the sputter, no matter what the crew says, it's time to head for the gas pump.
Yeah, I'm on my way, you know, and they're expecting you. I mean, you know, these things happen. They talk about these things before the race. They go over this stuff, and they know what the drill is. And EFR is so experienced. And you know what? You could just tell by his demeanor, you know, down there with Bill. He's really proud of what he just did, and he should be, because that was just a great stint.
Product of a 30-year veteran of the racing wars, Elliott Forbes Robinson doing his part to take Dyson Racing back to victory lane in the Rolex 24. Meanwhile, at the runner-up pits, they're watching the timing monitor, looking for a miracle. We'll be back.